We're back with part 2 of the Ondo Summit, so let's go ahead and get into it. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to be like, super thing. We've been going for 3.5 hours already. So let's go ahead and hop straight into it here. If I can pull up the correct thing for everyone. Boom. And we will commentate, let me know in chat, sign off in the chat, keep things going. But there is a lot of information coming, and it has been going fast and furiously. Here we go.
These are all new areas, but it all starts with getting wallets out there.
Wallets are the foundation of all of this transformation.
That's right.
Walk us through their penetration throughout the firm. If you were to maybe put some guesstimate, some number on it, how much of the firm is touching this nascent foundational layer?
So I would say it was really only about 10% of the firm at the outset of this year, but by the end of calendar year 26, I'm fully expecting that to maybe as much as triple.
Wow.
And about a third of what we're doing at the firm will be touching our own internal wallets in some way. So that's a very exciting progression that we're seeing even internally. And what's great about it is because we're doing this transformation within our own firm, we're also able to experiment. So we're bringing more and more agentive AI into working with smart contracts within wallets. And so the wallet itself becomes an ever smarter utility that we can begin to channel different services and different products to.
Sandy, what you're saying really echoes what was discussed on the banking and payments panel, which is that 2025 was the year of building and 2026 is the year of scaling out.
That's right.
And
I think
so
that's true.
What do you think, what could be some impediments to that scaling process?
Well, I think that, you've got to think about the scaling in different tiers, right? So the tier that is within the on-chain ecosystem, a lot of that's going to come down to where people are focused. You were just talking in your last segment about how the markets have been challenging, right? It may slow down a little, right? It may slow down a little as people focus on kind of rebuilding some of their core capabilities, refocusing on their core audiences. But then when you get to the next tier, which are the people who are both digitally native and in the traditional financial ecosystem, firms like Franklin Templeton, we're accelerating by bringing more of our off-chain world into all of this great infrastructure that we've been developing and operating on. And then I think you get to the third tier, which are the actual traditional financial firms where they're just beginning their exploration. And it's those middle two, that swing group that's both digitally native and TradFi, and then the TradFi group, where I think once these things begin, they take on a little momentum of their own. The crypto space has been so far ahead that maybe it slows down a little and gives people a chance to catch up, but I think that, crypto has always been, for me, a source of amazing innovation and exploration, and I don't ever see that changing.
I've been noticing across LinkedIn just a myriad of job ads, listings for stablecoin payments, crypto, wallet development across many different financial institutions.
Yeah.
What are you guys hiring for? What are you looking to build that might be different in 2026 compared to the previous calendar year?
Well, we've had a little bit of a head start on folks. I mean, our digital asset unit is almost 80 people now, so we've built out already. But where we're looking to fill in
They're catching up.
I know. The others will begin to catch up.
They're trying at least.
Where we're looking to build out is more folks than our distribution sales force, helping to really introduce the products we've built into a lot of regions around the world, right? There's a lot happening in the Middle East. There's a lot happening in Latin America. There's a lot happening in Asia. So we're bringing in more distribution and sales resources in those areas to help people understand how much better the products we're offering are and how much more benefit they can get by using them. So sales is a big area where we're building out. We're building out a lot in terms of our blockchain engineering, right? Because we're introducing a lot of new kinds of smart contracts and a lot of new kinds of products and functionality, which is just a little bit of a preview of where we're heading, but we're really trying to push the boundaries of what can the rails enable. And we've done this with money market funds, and now we're trying to do this with a broader set of products.
Is the sales force having a difficult time getting the traditional investment community to grok all this?
Well, I think that, I always gauge my internal teams as my thermometer there, and we're getting more and more interest in understanding the products, understanding how they can be positioned in the portfolio, understanding how and who they can bring in from the organization to help their clients begin to understand this space more. So I'm getting very interesting requests to talk to people that 2 years ago would never have even thought to ask about digital assets, which is great. But I think it's also that, people are starting to get very excited about the new distribution opportunities that this is opening up and the new investment models that are opening up.
You're busier than ever. Thanks so
Yes,
much
I
for
am.
taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, well, well. If I knew you were coming, I'd have baked a cake. Matt, how are you?
Good to see you too.
So give us a temperature check. How's the event?
Seems pretty good. I think it's a very interesting blend of more DeFi native, on-chain focused people, and then a lot of thought leaders from around the industry, from around TradFi. So my focus is very much on the DeFi side, and I am so thrilled that we got to announce Perps today, because it's been behind the scenes a ton of hard work trying to spec out the market, understand how it works, how to best integrate it with Spot. And I think it's got a real chance at strong product market fit.
Really? So what was sort of the work that went into building that out?
So, from the start, we really had to analyze where do we build this, right? Are we going to build our own? Are we going to partner? Are we going to build on HIP-3, Hyperliquid? Do we just try to go the centralized exchange route? And ultimately, what we found was that none of the existing products could really give us the ability to customize the collateral assets the way we need to. So, every perps exchange out there has USDC as collateral, right? But it's crucial for the capital efficiency of it that we're able to post tokenized assets as collateral. And even for the exchanges where you could technically do that, they just didn't have the level of sophistication to integrate with the deeply liquid spot markets. So I think kind of it left us in this state of well, we gotta build it, right? Luckily we were able to find some really great builders to join our team along the way. We've got some people internally working on it. You've got me, who just likes to yap about it. But it's going to be an incredible platform. I think with a lot of equities perps today, the market structure is just not there. They're toy markets, right? You don't feel safe. First, you don't feel safe from liquidation because you don't know what the mark price is going to do. Then you don't feel safe on the winning side of a trade because you feel you might get ADL'd. And so these are very much experimental markets today.
Ondo Summit,
but I think once you increase the liquidity to sort of match the underlying TradFi market, which is what we really do, they're going to become much larger pieces of the aggregate financial infrastructure.
So how exactly does it fix the ADL problem?
So with ADL, really what it represents is that the exchange can't find someone to take the other side of a winner. So if you're a pool hustler, think about it this way. You're playing pool, you're really good at pool, and I come in, I'm not very good at pool. I play against you, I lose my money, I don't want to play anymore, right? Or maybe I don't have any money left. You got to find someone else.
That seems like the state of the market right now.
Oh my God, yeah. Boy, I don't think any of us are hustlers right now. You need to find someone to come to the table to play you again. And ADL is really just the exchange saying, look, man, you won too hard.
Yeah.
We are tired of winning. You cannot keep winning here. There's no one left to
get out of the
donate
casino.
Money. Yeah, exactly. And so in TradFi that doesn't happen, right? Because there's always a liquid market for equities. There's always a liquid market for gold and silver and whatever. And so in theory, you should be able to hedge it out. You should be able to take the other side. You should be able to show up to it's like having another pool shark on your team, right? It's I show up to the table with you. I say, look, here's the cash, but you got to play my buddy, who's also very good, right? It's like that. And so you won't have these issues with ADL, with liquidity, with slippage, if you're able to transfer the liquidity from TradFi into the perps markets. And the only way to do that is with a super liquid spot market. So I'm very excited about it. We can see how excited people are already for gold and silver and copper. These markets are doing a ton of volume. And once they actually get like really deep liquidity, I think there's nowhere to go but up from here.
Amazing. Well, we shall see if we can continue, if we can start to go up, rather. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. And we'll be starting up soon here at the Ondo Summit at Jazz at Lincoln Center. It's been very fun to sit here with you and to interview these special folks about the state of the market. Hopefully you'll continue to stick around and see what's in store.
Welcome back to Ondo Summit. Let's give a warm welcome to our MC, Brendan Flores.
I'm assuming you were referring to the person that was just interviewing over there. Yeah, I agree, Corey. Again, how do you tell a banker is? How do you tell a banker's lying? Their lips are moving, right?
Let's jump right back in with our next session: red, white, and blockchain policy and regulation. This past year has been a defining one for digital asset policy in the U.S., and 2026 is shaping up to be no different. To discuss this, please welcome our panelists, moderated by the former chairman of the House Financial Services Committee and Ondo Vice Chairman, Patrick McHenry.
Well, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here at the second annual Ondo Summit, and pleasure to be on stage with two of the finest from the Trump administration, I must say. We have Patrick Witt, who's the Executive Director of the President's Council on Digital Assets, working in the White House, coordinating across government. And then we have Tyler Williams, who's coordinating across Treasury on the implementation of all the crypto-related items, including the Genius Act. Thank you all for being here today. Thanks for taking time. Lots going on. And so the prep for questioning of you, Patrick, is very difficult because you're so in motion, right? You started from, when did you start at the White House?
I started detailing over from the Pentagon in April of last year.
And then took over as executive director.
Late summer. Yeah.
So it's been an incredible journey to watch you do this. But I think it'd be great for a scene setter on what's happened over the last year, because a lot's changed just from election day of 2024 to today. So bring us up to speed on what's happened as a result of President Trump's election.
Well, it's been a flurry of activity, as you mentioned, not just on crypto policy, but across the board. This administration came in with a raft of executive orders and different actions that we started to move out on. I personally had a front row seat to that because I served on the transition. So I was one of the day one employees down there and got to see the different teams that many of whom had served in Trump 45 come back again this time around and kind of pick up right where they left off. And that core nucleus at the White House, too, with Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, Stephen Miller, others, had been working together, and some of them in the first Trump administration, but then certainly that was the campaign team. So it really just, we hit the ground running. And on the crypto side in particular, that was moves immediately to get the right people in place at the agencies, to nominate the correct folks, to bring in people like Tyler over at Treasury and build this incredible team, because it's not just the White House. It requires everyone at these different agencies that touch on crypto policy, even in places that might not be obvious to people on the outside that have a hand in this. So President assembled an amazing team. We got multiple executive orders signed. The first one, the ending Operation Choke Point 2.0, the Biden administration's misguided, let's say, policy of regulation by enforcement that had really just prosecuted and put crypto in the crosshairs and took a technology and an industry that really America should have embraced and put it on the outs and drove a lot of that innovation offshore. So we put an end to that. That's still an ongoing effort to root that out entirely. We got the executive order on the strategic Bitcoin reserve signed into law, stopped the government from liquidating assets By some accounts, I think we missed out on tens of billions or maybe even upwards of $100 billion of assets that could have been held on the balance sheet because they were sold in fire sales just without much thought whatsoever. And then obviously the big legislative push to get the Genius Act passed. So Tyler and team over at Treasury are now hard at work implementing the follow-on rules from that. I know they're working around the clock. There's a lot in there, a lot of directed rulemakings. But that one, I think you've already seen the response to that with people onshoring. New Fidelity just issued a stablecoin the other day. More and more people entering this space. Foreign heads of state, foreign ministers of economies, central bankers, all very interested in what the U.S. is doing with stablecoin policy. And then the next one that dominates my time these days is the market structure legislation. So the Clarity Act, which you have worked on multiple pieces of legislation over the years. We finally got one over to the Senate last week, which I'm sure we'll talk about. We passed it out of the Senate Ag Committee to the floor of the Senate, and now we're trying to play catch up on the banking side. Some issues still outstanding to resolve there, but that's a quick summary, not that quick, just because there is so much that has happened. But it's been a privilege to serve in this role, and there's still more to do.
Well, to look at the Biden administration, their approach to crypto, just the change in the election, just that change took us from a very negative view of digital assets where in order to be an innovator, you had to be offshore. That's the only way you could actually flourish with digital assets. You couldn't be in the United States. To the election, and just by the election of President Trump being pro-crypto, that changed the whole market. Mm-hmm. And actually made innovators look back to the United States. And then all the work that you and your colleagues have put in coordinating with Congress and the agencies has actually really driven the creators to come back, and innovate here domestically. It's a quite welcome thing, and a lot more to come. And we'll get to that because what you've been up to just in the last couple of days is market moving and substantial. But Tyler, Patrick mentioned the passage of the Genius Act, stablecoin law. We had negotiated, during my time in Congress, we had negotiated for 5 years. My first meeting on the House Financial Services Committee as the ranking member, as a lead Republican, was to bring in outside experts to talk about crypto market regulation, stablecoin regulation 5 years ago.
Do you guys think they're going to say anything of relevance with the market structure bill? Like anything at all?
And how quickly you're able to drive Congress to act on a stablecoin law in the passage of the Genius Act. And that happened when? April of last year? May?
Yeah, it got signed into law in July.
July. That's fast for Congress.
Very quick.
Now you have all the work of implementing a law. A new piece of legislation, and the work that you're doing within Treasury and to coordinate with these agencies on the regulatory implementation. Walk us through that work.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that. I'll do the second stage. I want to just add one thing that I think is really helpful to how the administration set it up. In terms of the executive director role, Patrick's role at the White House. It serves as a nucleus for all of the people across the government to work with each other. So we went through this process from the early day of the administration with the first executive order that asked the whole of the government to produce a comprehensive report on crypto policy regulation, like put all of your thoughts on paper of what's broken and what we need to fix. And we did that, and it keeps that group together. Like, we meet on a regular basis, we talk to each other, and you know this adage, like, you know, personnel is policy in Washington, and like, we all work together, we all like each other, I think. So like, just wanted to add that. So we published this, and I think David Sachs calls it the Crypto Bible. Like, it's literally on the website.
So how big was that report? Describe that for folks watching and where they could get it.
We did thousands of meetings across like the Treasury Department, White House, SEC, CFTC, DOJ, all of the other participants in the core working group. And from that, we spent months writing this report. And I think there's over 111 recommendations in there across agencies and departments, what Congress should do, what the regulators should do, how they should think about market structure legislation, how they should think about market structure certainty in the absence of legislation. So we sort of covered the watershed. And I think it's 168 pages, 400 plus footnotes, if I'm counting.
And where can they get that? Where can the public get this?
It's on the White House website, crypto.gov. So
Okay.
go there, read it. If you want to meet with us about it, come talk to us.
So you
Open
compiled
policy.
what all the agencies could do across government in that coordination.
That's right.
So what is happening right now with the Genius Act?
Well, on the Genius implementation, and I want to be a little careful not to talk about like specific timelines and things like that, but the bill and the act requires that Treasury coordinate with the bank regulators, whether it's the Fed, FDIC, OCC, and CUA for the credit unions. They all have supervisory and regulatory authority over stablecoin issuance. It contemplates sort of a dual framework like we have in the state and federal banking system, where you can be a state licensed entity, but you can also go to the OCC and get a license from the OCC to charter your stablecoin issuer. So there's the whole government from a bank regulatory perspective is involved. And what I was saying about this early report, like it helps because we all talk to each other all the time. We all work with each other. And so we really set out on this approach, at least from Treasury, that we wanted to make sure we did an advance notice of proposed rulemaking. So we put that out and we got 400 plus comments back, and we're going through that. The next step that we'll really get to is we'll do proposed rules, which takes time. We have deadlines under the act that are 1 year in July. We have 18-month deadlines. We have three-year deadlines. So all of
Leave
these,
it to Congress to come
all
up
of
with
these
quirky timelines.
And I would say just for like the people who think about Treasury is a huge building. We have domestic finance, international affairs, and then the terrorism, risk, and financial intelligence vertical. And then we have the IRS and other bureaus. So we work across the building, the crypto team at Treasury, so we cover the whole building and every piece of Treasury.
Okay, so with the Genius Act, we're in that pretty tight timeline. With the Genius Act, the passage of the Genius Act, I think we've taken some of that for granted, right? And the market has taken the fact that we have clear law when it comes to regulating stablecoins in the United States for all 50 states. The model that was before the Genius Act, that all the issuances went through, all the volume went through, was the New York regulatory model. So in many ways, the passage of the Genius Act was not really a revelation for stablecoins. You could issue it through New York. There's a clear regulatory perimeter there. But with just the passage of the Genius Act, and we're not even a year, don't even have a year anniversary yet, we've seen this rush of innovation and volume into stablecoins. And you see heavily regulated institutions, large financial institutions, get into this. You mentioned Fidelity's announcement of Fidelity offering a stablecoin. You see these major players making these moves. You see this with a panel of participants today of some of the largest asset managers in the world here at the Ondo Summit. So that's just one piece of the whole crypto conversation, is stablecoins. Important, yes, but less than 5% of the total dollar value of crypto is in stablecoins. Let's talk about the 95%. Okay, this is the complex bit that needs to be wrestled with. Talk about the complexities of market structure. What is the Clarity Act that the House passed with a very wide bipartisan majority that the Senate is working through? Give us the state of play there and a bit of the top line struggles.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it starts with what you just mentioned, which is this is covering and affecting a much larger, orders of magnitude larger size of the pie here. So as you mentioned, stablecoins incredibly important. They're going to continue to grow. Some projections have them just with incredible compounded annual growth rates into the future, but still a relatively small portion of the crypto industry. So most of the tokens out there that are trading, most of the companies that are engaging in this space are intermediaries, exchanges, broker-dealers, custodians, you name it. This is the bill that sets the rules of the road for them. How are the tokens going to be treated? ultimately who has jurisdictional authority over them between the SEC and the CFTC. It grants spot authority over digital commodities to the CFTC, currently a large gap. That's not a partisan issue. Both sides of the aisle recognize that that's a major issue right now, that there's all this economic activity and market manipulation potentially and bad actors that are just ultimately outside of the regulatory scope. So some of those are kind of basic table stakes. In addition to that, it goes into a definition of what is this thing we call decentralized finance? What is truly decentralized? Which regulators can opine on that and help flesh out some of that? Because within DeFi, there are multiple different business models. And what are the obligations for those different protocols? At the same time, which of these do we want to make sure are not being captured in the regulatory umbrella here that are ultimately just developers writing code, software, in the same way that someone publishing a website doesn't, it's similar types of ideas. Web3, truly, this is kind of the extension of that, just mainly into the financial space. So it has developer protections in it. It has certain activities that we are saying explicitly are not subject to Securities Exchange Act, 3334 Act, Commodities Exchange Act on the CFTC side. So there's a bunch in there. And then this other piece, which we can get into in a moment, which unfortunately we thought we had kind of put to bed in the Genius Act, but the issue of stablecoins coming up again in the context not of stablecoin issuers themselves, how they can pay or not pay rewards and yield, but in this case through the digital asset intermediaries, the exchanges, the broker-dealers, those third parties in between. That is now another point of contention that we're working through with the interested stakeholders.
So about that, you saw the delay in the Senate Banking Committee markup of clarity.
Bear with me one second. I'm going to see if I can pull something up and add it to the screen, make it better for everyone.
What some Democratic supporters and some Republican supporters had, which is a concern about stablecoins offering yield. The Genius Act has some permissibility for rewards. This has become, in banking terms, this major issue where they're talking about deposit flight from banks and a concern about bank failures as a result of this. I think that's hypothetical. There's no data that bears that out, but that is the terms of debate that the banks have had. I think it's noteworthy that you brought both the banking industry together and major crypto players in the stablecoin regime together for a meeting at the White House yesterday. Mm-hmm. I think that shows the importance to the president, to the White House, of getting a market structure bill. That's how I read it from the outside, from the cheap seats here. But you organized the meeting. You invited everyone that you invited attended. And I think it would be useful for us to hear your description of what happened and how we should think about that prioritization. From my cheap seats, I think it's a welcome sign that you brought these warring factions together and made a major statement to them.
Yeah, well, it absolutely is an indication of the importance that we put on this legislation. The president spoke, I guess, a couple weeks ago over in Davos about the market structure legislation. Again, just the other day in the Oval Office, he wants to see this get done. He wants another bill on his desk ready to sign. We'd love to have another big signing ceremony like we did with Genius. And we view this as kind of the last, at least, legislative piece that we have to get right. This is kind of the crown jewel that's missing right now. But we wanted folks to come together. There have been conversations on both sides of this debate, the banks amongst themselves and the crypto companies amongst themselves. And ultimately, there wasn't that dialogue happening across the chasm here. So it's a first step. It was intentionally not CEO level. This was more policy leads, lawyers, technical experts in the room. Come forward, swords down, make it as professional as we can. This is not about feelings. Let's keep it facts-based. And let's have a constructive dialogue about where we are, what are the red lines, where are the areas that there's actually some agreement here, and there are, and then where do we have the sharpest disagreement? And let's close the gap on those and potentially even think creatively about different ways that we could potentially pull things in that aren't necessarily germane just to stablecoins, but there's other regulatory priorities of both sides of this debate that are also priorities. And so to the extent that we can't necessarily solve it exactly word for word on a page, potentially adding some carrots and sticks, if you will, to close that gap. So it was a good dialogue, the first of several conversations. But as we communicated to the individuals that participated, and I do thank them for coming and participating, it was a good debate, or not debate, it was a dialogue, and it stayed
well, it could be a debate at points, right?
At points, but no, as I communicated to them, time is not on our side here, and to the banks in the room, the Genius Act is law. And that is the current status quo. So if the arguments made on the bank side are to be believed that this is the sky is falling, this is the end of the world, this is your opportunity to potentially make a material improvement over the status quo. But if ultimately this bill fails or falls down because of this issue, you get nothing. You get Genius. It is what it is. So approach it with a little bit of humility. And then also on the crypto side, what we've communicated to them is this bill, as we just talked about, has so many other good pieces to it. And there's so much that is necessary and positive for the industry. The stablecoin rewards yield issue is an important one, but it's not the core of this bill. And so let's keep things in perspective and approach things rationally and see if we can't land the plane on this. But I do think this is ultimately, with stablecoins, it's a new product. It's threatening to some people that aren't the most familiar with blockchain technology overall and stablecoins in particular. But ultimately, we do believe, as my boss David Sachs communicated over in Davos recently, this is actually an opportunity. This is a product that can be a win-win for the entire financial system, not just crypto at the bank's expense, but actually the banks have a real opportunity here to offer new products. And new business models can be built on top of these products. So we're managing through an interim period, but ultimately I think folks in call it a year, 2 years, 3 years, once they get more familiar with this is going to become part of the financial fabric, and will certainly not be as threatening, and people will be quite excited about it.
Yes, and look, we're here at the Ondo Summit, and Ondo is the market leader in bringing securities and real-world assets on-chain. This has been largely a product offered to non-U.S. citizens until this year, and the big announcement of this summit is about bringing this back to the United States. That would not have happened but for the election of President Trump, and but for the work that you two gentlemen are doing and your teams are doing. That should be a very welcome thing to the U.S. economy. But riding on that, the most important thing for Ondo and for real-world assets is making sure you have permissionless systems that can operate and compete in the marketplace. Permissionless systems are really the core of what makes crypto a long-term value proposition. How do you view permissionless systems? How do you view that concept, and where does that fall in the regulatory ambit?
It's hugely important. As you mentioned, the real innovation with crypto are these decentralized systems, permissionless, open blockchains. That's not to say crypto doesn't have applications in the traditional sense through fintech and taking existing centralized business models and making them more efficient, lower cost, lower friction. But we want to make sure that we're preserving what is really unique and special about crypto. So within the bill, as I mentioned, there are developer protections for those developing non-custodial software in a decentralized fashion. So we've taken a strong stance in preserving those in there. Mindful of, and it is not just on the Democratic side, but also on the Republican side, nobody wants to pass something that ultimately provides a license to engage in a bunch of illicit activity or that could be used to further adversarial ends. So we're striking that balance, and then on the exemptions from the different regulatory acts here, we're engaging with SIFMA, with the traditional players on the commodity side, CME, ICE, and others, to make sure that we're threading the needle between where something goes from just publishing software, and we don't want to criminalize code or subject that to overly burdensome regulations, while also making clear that when you do cross over into that commercial sphere and it becomes something that you have control over or custody of assets, you are going to have some responsibility. So trying to bring as much clarity to it as possible, but knowing that we have many members that are still getting up to speed on what this technology means.
Yeah. And Tyler, you mentioned the coordination between agencies and how vital that is. Treasury usually stands in the midst of these financial regulators and trying to get them to talk to one another. That is always a difficult thing. With the competing interests of credit unions versus banks, and we see this with state banks versus federal versus national banks. It seems like all that is even more heightened right now, given what's happening in the market. We saw the CFTC and SEC, traditionally adversarial agencies for territory, have joint announcements and a goal of coordination. Where does Treasury sit with that coordination across all these regulatory agencies?
Well, so we do it across a wide range of topics, whether it's like banking issues, whether it's modernization for different previous acts that have been put in place. What you and Patrick were just talking about, the legislative side of things. You know, we live that with regard to the effectuation and the implementation of the Bank Secrecy Act. So that has been delegated across regulators. So a lot of what this market structure bill would do is contemplate different organizational structures for how different registrants would be subject to the Bank Secrecy Act. So this debate about what is DeFi and what is true DeFi, you hear a lot of Washington talk about this. You know, it's often referring back to the guidance that FinCEN put out in 2019, and what does control over user funds actually mean in law. So when we work with the regulators, we're working with the SEC, the CFTC, and all of our touch points that we have from that. Treasury sits on the board of SIPC. Many people may not know that.
Just some dry stuff.
Equities in, no pun intended. We have different equities in many different debates just because of how Treasury is situated in the U.S. government. But I think a lot of our work that we've been doing with Patrick and team on the market structure side of things is just trying to be as like fact-based and evidence-based of like, here's how the law works, here's how sanctions work, here's how the Bank Secrecy Act works, and like getting all of our experts from like the FinCEN team and the OFAC team to talk to policymakers, because it is hard and it is confusing. And you know this very well, like it's hard to have experts on very specific minutia on congressional staff. So if we can lend ourselves to the debate and be constructive, like this is a bipartisan issue, and like we can do that. So that's our role.
From the outside world, the marketplace looks at redundancy of law, right? And says, well, we have 5 different laws that try to do the same thing. Why do we have this? And from my stance as a former lawmaker, the reason is because lawmakers don't know what the law is. So they're like, well, this example on...
Well, that makes sense.
OFAC, right? We don't want rogue regimes being able to use digital assets to carry out their ill intent. Well, first of all, it's an open permissionless blockchain. We can go watch them on this, right? Number one. Number two, we already have laws to go get the bad guys. We just need to make sure they're well adapted to the technology of the day, and that agencies have the capacity to get the best technology to go do that and go get the bad guys. So a lot of this is an educational, work that I know you both spend a massive amount of time on, educating policymakers about what is existent and why you shouldn't kill an opportunity for the United States out of something that they don't quite understand, a fear that they don't quite understand or have grounds to hyperventilate about.
On the point that you mentioned around certain lawmakers don't necessarily know what the law is, this is not to call any one individual out.
I mean, I'm the one that called them out, and I spent 20 years in Congress.
In the context of the Senate Banking Committee, for example, I won't necessarily say who, but one of the members said we're talking about Title I, the classification, token taxonomy, SEC versus CFTC authorities, and we're going back and forth on, okay, this is for securities, but what if something's not a security? What about Bitcoin or Ethereum or one of these other ones? And it's like, well, there's this other agency called the CFTC that we're going to be giving authority to regulate these markets, and there's another committee called the Senate Agricultural Committee that's debating provisions of that right now. So there is a bit of a blind spot between the two committees because of the dual nature.
And I feel a bit called out by that because that was part of the struggle of legislating when I was chair last Congress, is that we understand the regulatory perimeter around securities in the Financial Services Committee, and we just think the Ag Committee doesn't know anything about commodities. But when we start talking, you realize, well, wait a second, you have a resilient market here, we have a resilient market here. Why don't we take the best of both rather than try to reinvent the wheel? But okay, so we are sitting at still February of 2026. You're 13 months into the Trump administration, 12 and a half months into the Trump administration. Success for this last year was passage of the Genius Act. Years in the making, a huge revolution for crypto in the United States. We saw what 2025 was. Tyler, at the regulatory level, what does success look like in 2026? Patrick, at the legislative level, what does success look like in 2026? Tyler?
I think success would look like we have rules in place, we have given the public the information to consume and give us feedback on, so we'll have a constructive engagement with the public on the regulatory implementation. You'll see that not only from us, but from the other regulators, and then I think take the contents of everything that we put in the report and make forward progress on all of the recommendations that we made in there where we don't need Congress to act on.
Okay, and that is at breakneck speed for government, is what you're suggesting. What is breakneck speed for government, just so you can say it out loud for the world to hear?
Not on Genius implementation, but on the other things. I think in the report there's tons of stuff that we put in there on tax policy issues, for example. I think making forward progress on that would be so big for the industry. So like we'll try to keep pushing on all that.
Okay. Patrick?
Building off of that, you mentioned tax. On the legislative side, obviously market structure is priority number 1, 2, and 3, as my boss David Sachs says. So we are deeply focused on that. We're in the thick of it right now with the negotiations. Success would look like obviously passing it out of the Banking Committee, reconciling those products from the Banking and Ag committees to getting a bill that is ready to be voted on the floor. And passing that obviously on the House side as well. So getting market structure enacted. And then also there is movement on some tax bills in Congress as well. There's one that's been introduced on the House side. Senator Crapo on the Senate side has recently held hearings. So there is optimism that we might be able to get a product ready for prime time in a short amount of time, relatively speaking.
So if I can put you on the spot, Patrick, when does the president sign the Clarity Act into law?
Well, I have a birthday coming up, so let's say April 3rd. How about that?
From your lips to God's ear.
Here we go.
April 3rd.
Yeah,
So
no way.
First.
No way.
I've killed the microphone again.
There's a soundbite for you, though.
All right. We just heard April 3rd. I can't get a microphone to work. This is the third microphone I've killed today. So Patrick Witt said April 3rd, President will have the Clarity Act signed into law. That is optimism, but I think it's quite realistic given the level of work that you, your boss, and your boss's boss have put into crypto being made in America once again. And I must say, and to wrap this section, these are two examples of fabulous people working in government, working for the public interest here. And I think what you've just heard from this panel today.
All right, so while he's stroking their ego, You guys understand that was a joking soundbite that you're probably going to see blown up across media that Witt says the Clarity Act's going to be signed into law by April 3rd. Just keep that in mind when you're looking over your highlights and stuff, or your info and your news as you're searching. I guarantee you'll see that everywhere.
That's a wrap for this section.
Welcome back to the live desk. You heard it here first. Clarity Act could be signed into law by the president by April 3rd. We shall see. Patrick Witt sent a message loud and clear to the banks that the sky is not falling and that they should approach stable coins and crypto with humility. Thanks for tuning in to the live desk and for joining us at the Ondo Summit. Hope you'll enjoy the next session, which will get a view at the exchange perspective from crypto to stocks. Hope you enjoy, and we'll see you again soon at the live desk.
So let's see what they have to say here when it comes to exchanges. This should be an interesting perspective shift, especially after the last two. The last two were kind of dry, so hopefully we start getting some fireworks here. They did give you a little soundbite in that last one, though.
All right, that was fantastic. Thank you. I'm going to move right along. Our next panel is entitled Exchange 2.0, From Crypto to Stocks. And we'll discuss how tokenization and on-chain equities are redefining modern crypto exchanges and blurring the lines between digital assets and traditional financial markets. Please welcome to the stage our panelists, along with our moderator, Ondo's own Managing Director of Global Business Development, Min Lin.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the Exchange 2.0 discussion. I am particularly very excited to talk about sort of like how exchanges have evolved over the years. I've been working at exchanges for the last 5 years, just recently joined Ondo. So I have seen and witnessed sort of like the evolution in terms of how this exchange platforms has adapted into truly a super app. You're able to do literally everything within an exchange platform right now. You can invest, there's wealth management, there are bots already in it, and now we're introducing tokenized stocks and ETFs. So now we are seeing sort of like this blurring between a TradFi platforms and a DeFi platform. So with me, we have leaders in the industry, so I'll ask them to introduce themselves.
Oh, great. Well, thanks for having me today. I appreciate it. My name is Peter. I'm the CEO and founder of blockchain.com. We've been helping people and then later institutions be part of the crypto financial system since 2012. So we've been at it for quite a while now, as I'm reminded sometimes. And today we have about 40 million retail customers around the world, about 2,000 institutions that we do various sort of business for, and we transact about 1 to 1.5 trillion in volume a year. We're also a major supplier of liquidity across the ecosystem, and we have sort of helped incubate, invest in, or launch a lot of the sort of more successful projects and companies across the space today. And so, yeah, we have a pretty broad sort of view across the whole ecosystem, and one of the things that we're most excited about is bringing sort of more assets from the traditional finance world into the crypto world. Particularly the sort of really interesting and high quality assets that our customers are eager to have access to.
Hi everyone, I'm Gracie Chen. I'm CEO of BitGet. BitGet is a top crypto exchange established seven years ago. According to CoinGecko, CoinMarketCap, we are typically top 5 in terms of trading volume among other offshore exchanges. So one key strategic change that we are having right now or facing in this industry is exactly what the title point out, from crypto to stocks. As Ming pointed, we are all partners with them, and BitGet partner with Ondo mainly on being one of the distributors for their tokenized US stocks and ETFs. And I think according to your data published in December, we contribute about 90% of that volume. So that's definitely a lot of tractions that we're seeing from our retail users who are interested in trading tokenized US stocks and ETFs. We have 120 million users coming from more than 100 countries. So definitely also want to explore other opportunities with you guys, audience, anyone who want to expand or collaborate with an exchange like us.
Thanks for having us. Michael Shalov, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Fireblocks. We provide infrastructure for institutions and enterprises, mostly financial institutions, over 2,600 financial institutions that are using our platform. And that includes everything from wallet, settlement technology, tokenization, and access to DeFi, orchestration, and many other things. So, we basically, last year, there was about $6 trillion worth of transaction volume that went through our platform. And about 40% of our client base are what you would define as like exchanges, super apps, neobanks, basically the category that is financial institutions that are facing retail clients. I think when you aggregate probably over 1 billion of retail clients across all those platforms. And definitely kind of what we've seen front and center in the last 12 months or so is the convergence or basically the adoption of traditional assets into those platforms, and which I think makes a lot of sense for anyone who is able to offer digital-first experience. And also probably something we're going to talk is a bit of how the incumbents, right, the old school TradFi, are currently looking at it, and what are they going to do about it.
Thank you very much. Peter, diving straight in, right, you've been sort of like in this industry for quite some time, right, since 2011. So you have seen across the various cycles, you have seen sort of like the evolution in terms of how exchanges has adapted over the years. What is your perspective with regards to how are the platforms evolving and now integrating tokenized stocks and ETFs into offering? How are you seeing the competitive landscape with, say, TradFi, super apps?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think, crypto exchanges are for the most part in the business of growing and harvesting sort of retail trading flow. So almost like a payment for order flow model. With that said, like most of the real liquidity in sort of the top 5 digital assets is predominantly, in 1 or 2 derivative markets. And increasingly for Bitcoin, it's in the CME. So what we see is, sort of with tokenized equities, the liquidity obviously for those assets is in the traditional financial markets. And to some extent, you see these assets issued on chain and then they're going to be distributed to retail through the sort of exchanges, brokerages like ourselves, et cetera. But the real liquidity for those assets will remain sort of where it's always been. And so one of the things that we think will be an interesting transition to watch is sort of the transition of liquidity of crypto assets moving away from a lot of the sort of cloud-based, more retail-oriented exchange platforms back into the sort of on-prem traditional finance trading venues. Which whenever I say that, the crypto people kind of in the room get a little upset. But we're already seeing that transition happen live. In the case of Bitcoin and Ethereum, price discovery is almost exclusively on the CME at this point. And I think we'll continue to see that across any assets that are very successful. I think for assets like, that are smaller, like a new project or a new ICO, of course the liquidity for those will predominantly be in crypto native exchanges. And I think that will predominantly happen on DEXs actually. But I think for assets that really get to scale, you'll basically see them almost emulate what we see in tokenized stocks. And so I tell people that like, as a platform, offering tokenized stocks, getting good at setting up that infrastructure, hedging across TradFi and crypto native venues is super important because I think that that's probably how price action develops across the entire market.
Thanks. And Gracie, I know that BitGet's focus has been kind of like launching what you call the universal exchange, right? Can you talk a little bit about that sort of like initiative at BitGet, and then how have you sort of like prioritized TradFi integrations within the platform?
Sure. So in the crypto world, there are two terms, CEX and DEX, centralized exchanges, decentralized exchanges, a little bit like bipolar, and people just think it's either CEX or DEX. In our opinion, it doesn't really explain what we do anymore. Since 2025, we still hold very high security, all of our users need to do KYC, that kind of standard. That's very similar like a UEX. But at the same time, we offer lots of on-chain kind of tokens, including, of course, Ondo tokenized stocks and ETFs. But at the same time, actually millions of on-chain DEX kind of trading assets, as far as they are launched on top 5 public chains that we integrated, including Ethereum, BSC, and Solana, etc., they are tradable. Like our users can just put their contract address of this token and start to trade it using the USDT and USDC, etc., the infrastructure on exchanges. So we feel either DEX or CEX can explain what we do now. And we came up with this term UEX, Universal Exchange. It's not just a marketing term. That's something I want to highlight, although it sounds very much just like you guys created a new term. It is a trend. What I mean by that is if you look at the exchanges, we are all sort of offering more TradFi assets. It's not just Bitget, but Bitget is leading this conversation. Coinbase call it everything exchange. They're also exploring offering stocks and crypto as well as some other RWA products. Binance Wallet also listed on those stocks. But that is a trend that lots of offshore exchanges are heading to. We just tend to call it Universal Exchange to explain what we do exactly. So Universal Exchange means universally asset coverage, at the same time using, for example, AI as a tool to help our users gather information, place some trades, and also still hold very high standard for security and protection. We have actually the second largest protection fund in our industry, which is 700 million. AUM sort of fund, so that as an insurance kind of establishment there, just in case any of our users were hacked or lost money due to unstable system. That has been very, very important, like holding the trust and the credibility, as well as being able to offer a good amount of products to our users have been the key focus for us. But we just feel Universal Exchange is a good term to summarize what we do now. And I think it is a trend for the whole industry.
And Michael, like Fireblock serves, 2,600 institutions you mentioned. So that spreads amongst neobanks, wallets, exchanges, and so forth, right? How have you seen that demand in terms of tokenized stocks and ETFs amongst those platforms?
Yeah, so I actually like the UX because we call it the everything exchange, but
it's the same thing.
It's a better term, by the way. So we'll start using it because we have a blog about it.
Love it, thank you.
Yeah, but look, I mean, it is a trend, right? The trend right now is that I think anyone who has any form of financial app that is targeting retail users is trying to expand to a horizontal offering that includes everything, right? I think that probably like, Coinbase definitely like kind of were the one to maybe set the marketing tone, but I think that there are actually quite a lot of different providers that are, to a certain degree, front-running them. From our standpoint, first of all, our goal was to actually set up the infrastructure for them to be able to do it. We recently acquired a company called Dynamic that is doing on-chain wallets for exchanges and retail apps and fintechs. That is actually a critical component to do this successfully. So you can have basically a segregated account that is kind of non-custodial account that also is the regulatory experience with a custodial account, and of course the access across all the different blockchains. I think the biggest brand that maybe front running a lot of it right now we've seen is Robinhood. So they clearly came to all this from the very traditional space of competing with the interactive brokers and E-Trade and so on. And I think when they were solely in the United States, it was very clear that stock trading is done through their brokerage in the very traditional way, but they also had a very robust infrastructure to power crypto. When they decided to expand to Europe through the acquisition of Bitstamp and also probably soon into Canada, they figure out that actually doing it through a tokenized formulation gives them the ability to go into this basically acquire a license, but then immediately deploy the technology and immediately deploy the capabilities. So if you're actually now downloading a Robinhood app in Europe, the experience from user experience looks the same, trading Apple stock, but you actually see this kind of chain icon on the left corner, top left corner of their screen, and if you click on it, you can actually see the on-chain transaction for the settlement. So I think that this is the direction of travel pretty much for everyone. I think that there will be probably a bit of a mix on, based on the demographic of the users that you are servicing, what type of tokenized assets outside of stablecoins, which I think like stablecoins is like ubiquitous, right? But like what other assets people will start offering successfully on their platforms.
And Michael, you touch upon sort of like infrastructure, right? So like stablecoins has obviously scaled because the infrastructure has been there, right? You know, like what do you look at from an infrastructure lens standpoint for us to be able to really scale in terms of adoption across tokenized stocks and ETFs?
Yeah, I mean, my observation, and again, I think that Grace and Peter, you guys probably will have a more nuanced view on that. From a technical standpoint, my sense is the infrastructure is actually there, or at least like, you know, in our layer of the stack, the infrastructure is there, because the same technology pretty much that we provide people to deal with stablecoins or with any other, so to speak, RWA, is actually suitable for dealing with tokenized stock, right? It's actually asset agnostic. It seems to be that the main difference is actually the regulatory treatment, right, that is happening across different jurisdictions and liquidity, right? But I'll leave it to
Yeah, I would say that the big difference is, you know, in the stablecoin world, there is enormous liquidity. Like we can move billions, you know, from banks to stablecoins and back and forth across all of them a day and have. I think it would be very challenging to move $1 billion of tokenized equities in one day right now. Probably impossible, actually. And so I think a big, you know, I don't know if it's technical so much, because I would agree with you that it's sort of all the same technical infrastructure. But from a sort of market operations and market liquidity perspective, there's definitely a pretty long build out to do before, you know, the liquidity for tokenized equities matches, you know, stablecoin liquidity or even sort of liquidity in the stock market itself. So I think, you know, there will be a relatively, you know, medium-term build out of that. But I don't think it's a very technically difficult challenge, and I know it's something that you guys at Ondo are working on quite actively. But I do think it'll be several years before, you know, a year or two at least, before the market operations side can match like a very heavy demand for tokenized equities.
And as we are looking at sort of like scaling adoption, right? I think in the earlier panels, someone touched upon utility, right? And Gracie, like I think BitGet has sort of like innovated with regards to, you know, truly the integration of the traffic products. How are you sort of like thinking around bringing utility of those tokenized stocks and ETFs onto the platform for users?
Yeah, so BitGet is pretty big in perpetual and futures trading, and there were users who, or partners who asked us if we can enable using tokenized US stocks, for example, as a collateral to do perp trading. I find that a bit challenging because the users have a difficulty to understand why they should do it. We understand that they don't want to sell it, but it seems that maybe a loan product around that may be more feasible, and that is something we are discussing with our partners and, you know, internally to see if our users really have a need like that. Another landscape around this is also around regulation. In my opinion, regulators are like your parents, annoying but necessary. We do need to collaborate with them, and on each individual jurisdiction, the offering can be very different. But I'm sure compliance and regulation is another reason that we're a little bit hesitate about offering even just tokenized stocks to all our users. We can't cover all the regions.
Yeah,
regulation.
Same of regulations, actually. Like, how are you looking at regulations at a global scale, right? Because, like, how are they looking at sort of like where are the sort of like geographies that are most constructive when it comes to offering this type of products, and where do you see more fragmentation?
So MiCA is one region that exchanges are paying close attention to. We are applying for our MiCA license, and it should be done very soon this year.
European compliance.
US is another big market that exchanges have problem with. Other than Coinbase, Kraken, maybe Crypto.com, these are more US-based exchanges who grow up from this market that feel very comfortable and have the infrastructure of running it. All the offshore exchanges are very hesitant about entering the US market because the compliance cost is really high. You need to get federal license, individual state license, and all of like sort of remittance and then custodia, different licenses, just too many licenses there. Our parents ask for a lot of things. And then in Asia, I would say Dubai and maybe Hong Kong are also leading some of the regulation innovations, especially Dubai under the VARA framework. Hong Kong is a little bit back and forth. I think they were very optimistic and crypto-friendly around stablecoin and RWAs last year, but maybe central government of China have kind of put a halt on that, and they went back a little bit. Singapore was very supportive before FTX collapsed, but I think Temasek, the Singapore government fund, lost a lot of money in FTX.com and FTX.US, and after that we saw Singapore backing off a little bit. So it's a very dynamically changing landscape in terms of global regulations, but I would say right now Europe, US, certain cities or regions in Asia are more crypto-friendly and have fairly reasonable frameworks for regulating as exchange business as well as RWA and stablecoin kind of innovations.
And bringing it home a little bit, Peter, I know that you're very sort of like involved in the Clarity Act.
It's really important to notice, I know a lot of you all are XRP holders, so the fact that they're having trouble with all these different regulations and all these areas, don't forget, I mean, Ripple's got their licensing in all of these areas.
And I would say the one thing I'd say is, like, from where it started in 2013 to today, it's largely just improved. So, give it long enough and we'll get to a good place. But, and there's funny stories I can tell about that, not on stage. But, the biggest irony of the global regulatory landscape for crypto today is that Europe, the EU, was the first major geography to come up with a dedicated and implement a dedicated harmonized framework across a major market.
Well, I'm glad a lot of you are starting to talk in the chat now. There was a lot of news in the first part. If you missed part one, if you didn't see part one, there was a lot of announcements that came online. Basically, Ondo and their blockchain is essentially creating an entire tokenized stock market parallel to the traditional stock market. They're calling it Wall Street 2.0. There was lots of discussion about brokerage, about prime brokerage. We heard that name a lot. Was it prime brokerage that we heard a lot? But we heard a lot about brokerage. Not necessarily they're going to be partnered with prime brokerage or anything like that. I mean, several buzzwords in regards to interoperability, just over and over and over again. Bitcoin's been crashing all day and all week, and really the last few months. So the entire crypto market is down with it. But let's hop back into it. Keep the chat rolling. We're going to keep everything going the entire time. The more you guys engage with the chat, the more I'll pop in.
They are duplicative, and it is hard sometimes even to figure out which set of rules you should listen to because they are sometimes in conflict. And one of the things that I tell folks in DC, where I've been spending a lot of time lately, is that it's really not about the fact that the industry doesn't want to be regulated. It's that we want to be regulated in a consistent, harmonized framework that allows us to build businesses in a predictable fashion.
And also that framework doesn't change every 4 years.
Well, that's going to happen. That's just America. It won't change every 4 years because it's very hard to pass bills, but the interpretation of those laws will change. But that's a 20% variance, I think, that you can think of, and I think it'll largely be in a much better space in another 12 to 16 months.
Well, one thing though to say about it is that I think that through this implementation, especially with regard to the SEC, I hope that we will see implementation that actually is kind of pro-innovation and takes into account what the technology is actually able to do for consumer protection and liquidity and removing risk from the system, and is not really geared to preserving the kind of old order, old business models, right? Because that's actually not given. And to a certain extent, actually, with tokenization in Europe, I don't think it was like, fully resolved, so to speak, under MiCA and MiFID.
All right. So fast forward, sort of like, I think the TradFi panel sort of like gave their future predictions in terms of what does a sort of like future of investment would look like on the crypto exchanges and sort of like wallet side. Like, how are you guys seeing sort of like, say, fast forward to 2030, like how would this sort of like space look like?
2030, 4 years later, I think RWA will grow a lot. I have a very controversial saying that altcoin season may never come. So for the crypto business, it's probably a little bit tricky, and that's why we're going universal exchange, right? Like just diversify the asset coverage. But I'm sure RWA is growing a lot. Like right now, tokenized US stocks is only less than 0.1% of the TradFi US stocks, so lots of growth potential over there. But not just tokenized stocks, but tokenized almost everything, tokenized gold, silver, commodity, as well as money market fund, etc. They all have lots of growth potential.
Peter?
Yeah, I think that people will use primarily one app or two apps to trade sort of anything. Whether it's an event-driven trade, which we call prediction markets, but are really just event-driven trades, or equities or commodities or whatever it is. I think people will trade almost everything through one integrated interface with a sort of a whole lot of concern or even awareness of the infrastructure that they're trading it on top of. And just because that's a very banal prediction, the other thing I'd say is I fully believe that there will be another altcoin market wave because markets are very, the minute you think that they're done, they come back and hit you again. So now I'm just on the, we're always, there's nothing new under the sun program. But 2030 is a long ways out, and I'll have hit the mandatory crypto retirement age of 40 by then, so I won't be responsible for any of these predictions.
Michael, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I spend a lot of time with not only with the people on the crypto side and the crypto native side, but also with the execs of some of the most traditional banks. It's pretty clear to me that they're going to be dragged into this by kind of market forces, because at the end of the day, the consumers, the retail, the users, right? They won't like stick to experiences that are outdated and clunky. They will all move into experiences that are the most advanced experiences that they can sign up for, and therefore I think that this will impact those institutions as well. I think there will need to be a lot of alignment, a lot of investment, a lot of education over there, but I think it's also inevitable that the biggest institutions in New York City will have to offer that as part of their entire kind of offering.
Well, thank you very much. That's all the time that we have, and that's a wrap. Thank you very much.
Completely contrarian to what the guy from Swift was saying earlier. Remember when the guy from Swift was on there, he said there's no reason to switch and move too fast. These things work. There's no reason. And this guy's saying, well, if it's too clunky, they're just going to move on and find something more advanced. Technology will win overall in the future.
one user interface through one platform. And of course, the growing interest in crypto equities. We've got a lot more for you coming up today, folks. I'm most excited for the next panel, which is going to bring an executive from BlackRock on.
Hey,
if you've been tuning in
finally.
the entire day,
Here we
you
go.
would remember that I've been talking about the extent to which Wall Street is hiring for crypto, and BlackRock's a great example of that. Thanks for tuning in.
Finally going to get the exec from BlackRock. Who knows what they'll be talking about, but they are partnered with Ondo. Let's find out.
All right. Hope everyone's hanging in there. For our next session, we're hosting an executive fireside with BlackRock to learn more about what the world's largest asset manager thinks about tokenization and how it will affect financial markets. To discuss this, please welcome back to the stage Ondo's Ian DeBode, along with BlackRock's Global Head of Market Development, Samara Cohen.
No Larry Fink.
Samara, thank you so much for joining us here today. We had you here last year as well at the Ondo Summit. Obviously, a lot can happen in 12 months. BlackRock's always been very forward-leading into the space. You guys launched the Bitcoin ETPs back in 2024, I believe. You had the tokenized treasury fund with BitO, and then most recently, quite frankly, some of the iShares ETFs have been tokenized via the Ondo Global Markets platform. So how do you look back over the past 12 months? What changed, what didn't? Just reflections.
So thank you so much, Ian, for having me today. I have to tell you, the only thing that feels the same about last year is the snowy landscape, which I explicitly remember. But this weekend, when I was gathering my thoughts for this conversation, I thought to myself, was it really only last year that I was here? Because an extraordinary amount of progress has been made over the course of the year, and there's a lot of things to credit with that, and I think it's something to celebrate. And Ondo has played a really important
Progress, but not price, unfortunately.
year. And some of this, has really been covered over the course of the day. The big pieces are, number one, obviously the progress on the legislative front with the passage of Genius Act and just broadly speaking, regulatory engagement and progress. Lots more to do, but that was a huge milestone of progress. Number two has really been the industry engagement and collaboration with all different types of market participants. I think, frankly, in the US, Genius was a bit of a wake-up call, this is happening, and if you haven't been involved, it's time to get involved. And I think that's been productive. Over the past, call it 8 months since then, I've been a part of many more conversations with both TradFi and, DeFi and crypto players represented, and I think that's been really productive. And lastly, really to your point, has been the innovation that has actually happened in the market, including on the tokenization side. And so I think, we're at a moment where we're kind of on the precipice of what that looks like. And I'm going to add, I love that you referenced IBIT, our ETP, because it shows that you know my passion for labeling, because 99% of the rest of the world, my family, my kids, will call IBIT our ETF. But technically, it's not an ETF, it's an exchange-traded product. And in all seriousness, in a world where it is terrific how much innovation and choice is available to investors, I think the burden on us as an industry, with help and partnership from the regulators, but I actually view this as more of an industry prerogative, is to really be clear on our labeling and what we're talking about. And so I think, fast forwarding to, there's lots of developments for us to talk about, but last week, the piece that the SEC put out, guidelines for tokenized securities, was it tokenized securities or tokenized equities? It was helpful, especially it wasn't thousands of pages. It was 6 pages in reasonable font, 28 footnotes. I'm not a lawyer. I was able to read it. I needed clarifying help on 2 of the footnotes. But I think that as an industry, we can still come up with something a little bit more consumer friendly, especially when it comes to things like ETFs, because I think what you have done, and there are different models in what has unfolded on chain over the past year in terms of providing, call it, tokenized price representations to investors. And there, I would say you guys have really set what, in my view is kind of the gold standard in that, there are models that are permissioned. Yours is permissionless. There are models that are actual tokenized securities. There are some that are derivatives. Yours is securities. And there are some that have more robust mechanisms than others for alignment in the secondary market. And I think progressing taxonomy with respect to what's trading on chain, and then how we think about natively tokenized products when they're introduced is going to be what I hope we're talking about if you have me back next year.
I love that a lot. No, I mean, I can only echo what you mentioned. There's a lot of talk about tokenization in the US. Clearly, there's a lot of different models. Ondo has gone for a model that right now only works offshore. At some point, we hope to bring that to the US. But ultimately, it's good that these different models exist. They should all coexist, just like they do in TradFi to an extent. And then, once the likes of BlackRock start moving in with native tokenization as well, that is absolutely that we, as a company, would also be quite interested in collaborating on something like that and moving part of our backing in those assets. So, can fully agree with everything that you have said. I think for the audience, it could be helpful because I've heard you articulate this a few times, and every time I learn something new. BlackRock is pretty early in leaning forward on both crypto assets and then more recently tokenization. What really triggered that early engagement into crypto and digital assets? Why was that exciting for BlackRock to do in the first place?
Well, we have a pretty clear North Star as a firm, which is to help more people participate broadly in the capital markets. And also to make more of the capital markets accessible to them. And so over the course of, the past, we're in 2026, I guess, we built out our digital assets effort started to build it out in 2017. And very typical kind of TradFi story, I would say broadly across the investors and business people inside the firm. It was very much what are the exciting applications of blockchain technology and much less of a Bitcoin or crypto investment story. And that changed over the course of, call it 2019, 2020, when we started to hear, and then really acutely into the dual sell-offs of 2022 when equity markets and bond markets sold off together, and investors at a time then that rates started to rise really had to consider what does a diversified portfolio look like over the course of the next 25 years. Now, 2023, they kind of got a pass because, rates were, you could invest in like short-term rates and still earn you could be highly defensive and earn some income, but then you have to think longer term about reinvestment risk. So that kind of what brought us to really listening to our clients and their interest in looking at Bitcoin specifically for its diversification potential. And then we asked ourselves the question, how? And really developed a strong view that the ETP as a wrapper would be a really helpful way for our clients to construct portfolios that had allocations to Bitcoin. So it started with the investment thesis and then went to the wrapper.
Yeah, no, I like that framing of the wrapper in a way to make an asset more accessible. I feel like you guys pioneered that really with Bitcoin, wrapping a crypto asset into a traditional instrument and making that available to a broader audience. I feel like right now we're almost doing the opposite at Ondo, where we wrap traditional assets into a wrapper that can then be issued offshore in a different format, so it looks a little bit more like a stable coin and can be accessed permissionlessly. You've talked a little bit about some of the parallels that are happening between tokenization as a technology and the concept of an ETF. Would you mind just articulating that a little bit more in terms of what exactly that parallel looks like for you and any type of advice that you have for us as we try to continue down the path of tokenization?
Yeah, so look, I look out in this audience and I know a fair number of you, so I'm not talking entirely to a digital native audience, which again says something about the convening power of Ondo, but like, spoiler alert, we have been doing this with the ETP wrapper for 25 years, and in particular, the ETP wrapper and ETFs have been a really critically disruptive technology in the fixed income market, taking bonds, which were incredibly hard to buy, and putting them on exchange so that they were more accessible, were more easily used in diversified investment strategies. Importantly, not only delivered to investors, but created a virtuous cycle in the bond market itself, because the more investors wanted to get their fixed income exposures in ETFs, the more the market ecosystem, liquidity providers, trading platforms had to meet that demand. And because we were talking about like thousands of bond line items that go into an ETF, it meant that they had to develop algorithmic pricing capabilities, portfolio trading capabilities, and this actually ended up bringing a lot more transparency and liquidity into the bond market. So I think this is really instructive at this moment, and I think you're exactly right. Just as we were excited to bring crypto exposures to equity bond investors who didn't have any crypto exposures, we're incredibly excited to help crypto investors diversify their portfolios into global equity and bond markets. So we share that aspiration. I think the guiding principle for us, especially, I love the mantra that you have around bringing TradFi liquidity on chain, is making sure that we don't, in the process of doing that, fragment liquidity or undermine transparency. And that's one of the reasons why, you said all of these models, can coexist. I kind of think, can they? I mean, some of them maybe.
Right.
Like I said, I think you guys have put out a gold standard type of, tokenized price representation, but I don't know that all of the models, deliver at the same level and have the same mechanisms for investors. And
okay,
some of this
that's
will
pretty
be,
high praise from BlackRock.
Much of this will be determined by the market, and I think we will certainly go through a period of multiple models operating simultaneously. But even during that transitional period, I think we have to work really hard, as partners and as an industry, to preserve on-chain investor experiences, so that we, and like Gracie said this beautifully in the earlier panel, we kind of continue to earn trust and build trust so that the technology can actually scale.
No, 100%. And yeah, I mean, you make a good point. I think ultimately the market will decide which form of tokenization actually works, right? So that's why I'm excited that we've seen very good adoption. And I appreciate the kind words around our tokenization model, because it is, if you want to tokenize assets and really make them globally accessible, you have to tap into that TradFi liquidity, really build the bridge, because to your point, ETFs have created so much liquidity in the underlying, it'd be a shame to fragment all of that. I want to talk a little bit about, we talked a little bit about the ETF parallel, and now we're entering a stage where individual stocks are being brought on-chain, ETFs are being brought on-chain, and because of that fact, they in a sense also become programmable. Right? They can engage with smart contracts, they can engage with DeFi, but what does that actually ultimately all mean for the future of asset management, to have these programmable assets, programmable stocks, programmable ETFs, living alongside crypto all on the same rails? What does that actually mean for asset management going forward?
I think, the big picture is it's going to make it easier to construct the broadest portfolios possible. I mean, one of the reasons that we, and by the way, I think I've told you this story, when the whole idea of a Bitcoin ETP was first pitched to me, I thought, I don't get it. Like, isn't the whole point of Bitcoin that it's so accessible? Like, doesn't the ETP wrapper potentially deprecate the promise of Bitcoin? But one of the things we learned was that investors really wanted that without a standard wrapper within one ecosystem, it was very hard for them to manage their whole portfolio, to adjust risk and even to understand what risk they had in what environments. So I think this kind of, concept of the, integrated exchanges and universal exchanges, to me, I hear just the opportunity to build and customize broader and more specific portfolios for investors.
Yeah, no, I think obviously it's something that you guys have done for years already, to have these model portfolios that really represent diversified exposure for an investor, ultimately, depending on their risk appetite. It's interesting because I think the broader retail audience globally, particularly the ones that are crypto investors natively, they have not really had a lot of experience with just a diversified portfolio more broadly, right?
And it doesn't seem that fun.
No, it doesn't seem that fun, but it's hugely important for your overall financial returns, particularly over a long period of time. So it's very exciting to hear that you guys are kind of looking around the corner and trying to figure out how do all these assets live together, and how can we essentially have diversified exposure for an on-chain user base.
I guess to that point, we laugh about it, but I think user experience, like as we all know from our lives, and those of us who have kids who are online, it really matters a lot. So when I think about like what it's going to take to make my kids actually care and be interested and engaged in their financial health, I think as a technology, it's very promising on that front too. So I actually am quite bullish. I think that we see investors who may come to the market because they're excited to trade, but hopefully stay in the market because it encourages them to invest in a durable way.
100% agreed. So we're coming very close on time, but I want to just give you the opportunity for the next, call it 12 to 24 months. Let's say you're sitting here next year again, hopefully 2 years from now. What will need to have happened, in your opinion, for tokenization to really succeed and start coming into the mainstream?
So first of all, again, I think one of the things that has helped you guys be as successful as you have is you've had real clarity of vision, and you've been very specific about creating this integrated ecosystem and bringing, equities first on chain, when a lot of people were kind of saying less liquid assets are the place to start. And I think that's something you got right. I think to get it to a sustainable place that can really scale over the next 12 to 24 months, we need to see mechanisms that provide better and more robust means of maintaining that sort of market integrity, price integrity, liquidity. And I do think ultimately, and this is going to take ecosystem work and regulatory work, but introducing issuer-led tokenizations that provide some interaction in the primary market with the fund and the underlying securities could be that incremental mechanism with these models to create a reference asset to support that market integrity. So I hope we see that.
No, I fully agree. It's kind of almost what you guys did with BIDL and have that be an anchor or backing asset for other tokenized treasury funds. I'm very much looking forward to the day where we can start doing that with some of your ETF.
You and me both.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Samara. That's a wrap.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
All right, we'll see what comes up next, but that's it for BlackRock. Not really much there, just a lot of really high praise about the tokenization model of Ondo. And they're on another break. They'll probably go back to whatever his name was. Okay, so the next session's at 3:40. So in 25 minutes is the next session. And then they just have interviews at the desk. So we can fire up the chat. What do you guys want to talk about? What do you guys think about all this? BlackRock didn't really say much. Let me get out of this. BlackRock really didn't say much at all. Honestly, they kind of got all of the juice out of the squeeze in the first 30 minutes of this thing this morning. I can pull, let me pull back the, gosh, let me get my brain turned back on. That was so dry, I know. Let me get my brain turned back on, and we will discuss what's actually happening in the markets right now. get the chat fired up. Let's talk about what's going on while we're waiting on this 25-minute break here. And let me try and get the, there we go. That's what we want to see what's actually happening in the market. And I can put that back over there a little later. Just slide this over here for now. Boom. All right. Let's take a look at the chat. See what people's saying. Could it be that they are keeping Brad as the finishing touch, the icing on the cake? Well, I don't know if Brad is there. They said Ripple is there, but I don't know if necessarily Brad per se is there. I mean, they said they're going to go live again here in 25 minutes. They can't have much more time left. They started this thing at 10. I don't know how late they're planning on going. She warned against fragmenting liquidity across chains, as BlackRock's saying the market will consolidate one or two winners, and they think Ondo is one of them. Well, again, I mean, Ondo is part of the tokenization play for sure, and that's not the first time that BlackRock has said that. Larry Fink actually said that at Davos, that he specifically said it would work better if everything was on one chain, right? That was said by Larry Fink, and then what she just said basically echoed that. And it's kind of like we've been discussing in our daily live streams. And again, if you're new to the channel, we stream every single day, Monday through Saturday at noon. Occasionally, I go at different times if there are events going on. But one of the things we've been discussing is that this is going to be a lot like how the internet was, and when the internet came on. There's going to be a bust, there's going to be a bubble, and there's going to be a lot of them that fail, but there's going to be probably a handful, 3, 4, 5 winners that rise to the top. And as long as we get a couple of those right, we're going to do all right. We're going to come out way ahead in this because we are so early to this race. Because again, we still don't have clarity. They're talking about less than 1% or 2% of tokenizations really taking place to this point. And they talked about so many different institutions that aren't even on board because of the legal issues and the SEC and the regulation, right? We do need clarity to push through. But even as we're talking, Bitcoin's trying to run back up. It got down as low as 72,000 and is now currently back up to 75,000. Will it be able to rebound? Who knows? We'll have to watch and find out. Let's see what some of the others are doing. Again, keep the chat rolling. We'll be back to the Ondo Summit here in about 10 to 15 minutes. They're on a break right now. So they should be returning back in about 15, 20 minutes. See what Ondo's doing right now. Ondo's running back up. They're back up to 28 cents. And again, everything's following Bitcoin. XRP's up to $1.58. And Chainlink is up to 950. And then Canton, what's Canton doing? Canton is back up to come on now, 18 cents, 18 point, yeah. So not bad. Everything's coming back up. Canton had a nice little pullback down there to 17 cents for a second. That was a heck of a run back, but that's okay. That's all right. That's a buying opportunity for me, not financial advice. Let's see here. Let's see what the chat has to say. And the cross-border payments will be ran through the XRP ledger. We can hope. I mean, I can't think of anyone positioned better than Ripple and better than the XRP ledger to take care of all the issues that they're discussing, right? We talk about positioning yourself, looking at what problems need to be solved. And they were talking about the major issue with prime brokerage, right? They were talking about the issue with prime brokerage being an issue. Now we got Ripple prime brokerage. Come on, people. They said there's a major announcement. There's been rumors of Ripple and Ondo having some kind of partnership in the near future. It just makes too much sense. Maybe that's what's coming this afternoon. We'll see. I'm not sure. But that's why I'm watching. I'm waiting for some kind of major partnership, but we already have seen the major things they announced this morning as far as Wall Street 2.0 and their partnerships. Gosh, I can't even remember what they announced the partnership with this morning now. Gosh, I need to take notes sometimes. My stroke brain forgets things. They announced some kind of partnership this morning. Now I can't even remember. I'll have to go back and rewatch it later. Flare, what about Flare? You think there's going to be some kind of major partnership with Flare and Ondo? I do hold a little bit of Flare. That's kind of one of my dart throws. It's not one of my 5 core infrastructure pieces. And again, none of this is financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. You need to do your own research. Let's see what's going on with the Ondo Summit. XRP ledger activity, always doing well. This is my first time on your show. Well done. I'm intrigued. Yes, I completely agree. All roads lead to Ripple. Well, they do certainly seem to be connected with the right people, right? So again, if you are new to the channel, you are new to the stream, I know that the Ondo Summit is bringing in a lot of people. Couple things. First, I am about more than one asset. I'm about the infrastructure for the long view. I hold XRP, Canton Network, Ondo, HBAR, and Chainlink. And I also hold my metals, copper, silver, and gold, and real estate, right? It's about building infrastructure for the long view. I'm about what the markets are going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, not necessarily what they are today or tomorrow or even next week. They announced a partnership a year ago with Ripple. Well, no, I understand that. I mean, a partnership in which they're going to use XRP. They announced their partnership with Ripple to move their stablecoin on chain last year, which we already know. I mean, something else. I think something else is coming. Not just what we know. Yeah, I know that they got their stablecoin on there. But what else is going to be coming to XRPL? I want to see them put tokenized stocks, derivatives, like these kinds of things, other pairing options for XRP to switch between. But speaking of XRP, that's why we follow what's actually taking place on the XRP ledger. So I've been talking about the account set activity ad nauseum now for months as soon as we started getting these major spikes up to 40K. If you look at the history of the ledger, we never saw spikes that big. But not only did we get spikes this big, it's also maintained that level of activity all the way through to now. This is accounts coming online, you know, permissions, activations, on and off ramps, things like that for different accounts. But that being said, we've been waiting to see for that to translate into payments activity. We are starting to see increased payments activity over the last couple months, and now it is spiking up to close to 2 million. If we can get over 2 million and can maintain this consistency, I don't see how we don't have some kind of level of price appreciation. Now, how high that appreciation goes, I do not know. But that's why I watch it. That's why I follow it, because I'm trying to track the actual utility of the XRP ledger. We like facts, figures, numbers, logic, and we follow the money. So when BlackRock is involved in something as heavily as it is Ondo, and when Chainlink is partnered with things like Canton Network or whatever else you want to throw, you know, XRP with RLUSD, getting Wormhole, going on to Solana and other major other major chains, Ethereum, Solana, all these things that are starting to become available with interoperability. Interoperability has been the buzzword of the day. We have heard the word interoperability probably a gajillion times, and Ondo just went live on MetaMask, says Sir Charles. Let me pull that up. I got the wrong screen pulled up. So Ondo now live on MetaMask. Will that pump the price of Ondo? Probably not, but who knows? Again, we're here for the long view. So let's hop back into where they are. Let me see what they're doing here, if they're doing anything. Yeah, they're still doing the desk interviews. If you guys want to see the desk interviews, let me know. I don't want to get off. Oh, I have this other one. Sweet. I can do this. You can follow me on X. It's at Longview Crypto. If you want to see what my bookmarks and things like that I actually post out early before I stream. Quickly though, don't forget XRPL will have tokenized diamonds on the XRPL coming with tokenized diamonds coming to the XRP ledger. A Canton Network has passed Monero for the number 15 spot in coin market cap. So big announcement is loading for Ondo Finance. That's what I tweeted out yesterday. Canton Network CC defies the market downturn. What's behind it? And what's actually behind it is real world adoption is driving it. While Bitcoin faces selling pressure and most altcoins are in the red, Canton Network's native token has been bucking the trend. That's why it's moved up in market cap so much over the last month, because it's been rising while everything else is falling. It's really easy to do that. So again, if you guys want to see these things, you can certainly follow me on X. It's at Longview Crypto. I do appreciate it. And I appreciate everyone for taking your time to be here on the streams. I know we're just killing a little bit of time during this break, but I do appreciate everyone taking your time to be here on the streams. Your time is your most valuable asset. And holy crap, Chainlink shooting up. What's Bitcoin doing? Going straight up, yo. What's happening? Well, Bitcoin's still climbing, 76,000. What's XRP doing? So market is recovering. Whoa, XRP going straight north right now. We love to see that. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. What's going on here, folks? This is not normal. Quite a recovery. Oh, there it goes. Sorry, I got distracted by the massive run we were on here for a second. I love to see number go up, don't get me wrong. But that was pretty fast. What do you guys think? What's the thing you're most concerned about with crypto? There's a lot of fear in the market right now. Let me know in chat. Sign off on the chat. We're gonna go back to the actual. We're gonna go back to the actual Ondo Summit here now that we've killed a little bit of time waiting for them to get through their break. Price just shot up dramatically. That's always a good thing. So let's hop back to the summit.
See traditional players really coming to the table and thinking about how this technology and how getting involved in the ecosystem will really transform their business.
That makes a lot of sense. So thinking to 2026, what does success look like as it pertains to this marriage of DeFi and traditional finance?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think for us, really success looks like a couple things. One of which is, we've made a commitment, as I've said here, to delivering our tokenization service, and that's something that we'll deliver sort of in, I'll call it the early part of the second half of this year. That's going to start with a defined set of securities in a way that's very kind of measured and thoughtful, and that will allow our clients to be able to leverage that service in a way that they think is useful for their business. And frankly, I think we will stage them thereafter into a broader set of securities, a broader set of services that we'll continue to develop.
Amazing. Brian Steele, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks
ETCC,
so much.
Company to watch.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody's
Thanks for having
watching.
me.
Take care.
Thank you.
Amazing. Well, next up on the docket, Summer Mersinger at the Blockchain Association. We haven't had the chance to meet before, I don't think, at least.
No, pleasure meeting you.
But congrats on the new role.
Thanks.
Relatively speaking.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk of regulation, obviously, with Clarity or Genius in the rearview mirror, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And we had Patrick Witt join us earlier today, and he said April 3rd could be a potentiality
April 3rd for Clarity, according
the
to
ink
Patrick Witt.
from the president's desk drying. Is that ambitious for Genius?
I hope he's right. That would be amazing.
Make your job a little bit easier.
Yeah, it would
perhaps.
certainly make my job easier and would provide a lot of certainty to a number of our members who really want to expand in the U.S. and are just kind of waiting on the sidelines until we get market structure in place.
So, Summer, bring us into the Beltway, so to speak. Obviously, I was reading the Wall Street Journal over the weekend, right? And they painted Brian Armstrong as Wall Street's enemy number one as it pertains to this stable coin yield question. How do you see it all shaking out? Will we be able to come to some form, no pun intended, to a consensus?
Yeah, no, it's tough. It's a tough issue. Certainly, I think the two sides are pretty far apart, but you mentioned Patrick. He brought together the two sides yesterday for a meeting at the White House. It was a very productive first conversation. Certainly, we didn't work out a deal, but I don't think anyone expected that. I think at the end of the day, for the traditional finance for the banks, if this doesn't get solved and we don't get market structure, nothing changes for them. And so I think they've got a vested interest in getting market structure done because they want a change to this piece of the Genius Act. And I think for crypto, we've been in the room and good faith negotiating from day one on this. Certainly, we've tried, we've offered a lot of thoughts and suggestions, and so it is good to see the banks now coming to the table.
One thing that the banks have sort of suggested is that the stablecoin yield element can be a risk to the deposit business, specifically for small banks, regional banks. Is there any sort of way we can carve out something that protects them, so to speak, without hindering the growth of stablecoin providers?
Yeah, I think the narrative there is kind of a false narrative.
Yeah, that's tough. Since 2025, now significantly down considering you bought 245 and above. That's really all you can do is dollar cost average in over time. Unfortunately, it's the best thing you can do in that kind of situation. Hopefully you can bring your average down from where you initially got in. I think my buy average is $1.76 on my XRP. So it's actually a little lower now because I just bought some more in the $1.50s yesterday, but hopefully it's that's how you get back to even, I guess. That's the idea of it anyway. Sorry, I'm talking to you while I'm trying to fix this. There we go. My biggest concern is that we're building the next financial system in real time and seeing Ondo launch a tokenized stock exchange, but retail is panic selling at 10-month lows. That's usually how it goes, though. We saw this happen last time, right? So in 2021, we saw this happen, that we had this huge run up to these crazy, insane, all-time high prices. There's still, I don't think we've returned to some of those prices for some of these cryptos as we got to in 2021. And people were buying, and it just got destroyed. And of course, you get to all-time lows when people should be buying, and everyone was afraid of crypto. And it wasn't until it got back to all-time highs and back in the spotlight again at the end of 2024 and 2025 that a lot more people started coming back to buying crypto again, or a lot of people got into it this last year in 2025 because prices went up. That's usually how it goes, unfortunately. And you actually see it too in YouTube. People will start watching more, and more people are coming online as price is going up more and more. It's human psychology. Unfortunately, you kind of have to do the opposite of what you think you're supposed to do. When something's getting destroyed is usually when you should be buying it, not the other way around. Because they can't see the price chart. People are going to sell the infrastructure of the future for a loss. Yeah, because it's not being reflected on price right now. Even Brad Garlinghouse said it not too long ago that the price is not fully priced in right now. All the infrastructure and all the adoption is not fully priced in yet. A lot of people believe that way, not just us people out here holding our crypto, not just us retailers. He says, zoom out. The world is changing in front of our faces. I completely agree with that. Sell it because they are casino players. Yeah, usually the people who are selling, and that's why the long view players make the money, because the casino players are the ones who sell out when it's low. And then we sit here and we're dollar cost averaging, and we're buying every week or month or whatever you're able to do. And none of this is financial advice. It's entertainment, educational purposes only. Do your own research, speak to a financial advisor. But the fact that the people who dollar cost average in are buying up that, so when it does appreciate, we're the ones making the money. We've had a couple major announcements early this morning. The first one was the Wall Street 2.0 announcement. We're still waiting. We just have BlackRock out, but the Wall Street 2.0 announcement, they're basically, Ondo is building an entire stock market, an entire tokenized stock market, essentially. And they are already working with BlackRock. They're already working with JP Morgan. They had a whole slew of people out there. But so the first major announcement was the launch of Wall Street 2.0. That's live now, as effectively as 9 o'clock, they said. Ondo's now on MetaMask as well. So you're going to have tons and tons and tons of tokenized stocks and ETFs and options like that available on multiple different platforms. Interoperability has been talked about at length. All kinds of stuff. We'll get into more of a recap later. I got to get my brain on for that. But I don't think the major announcement has been made yet. I think that's going to come here in the next hour, honestly. They still have Ripple to come on board here. We'll see what they have to say when Ripple comes out. There's still a lot to come on it. So Charles, yes, I see and continue to buy. I definitely won't break even, but I'm definitely buying at a discount. I expect to fall further due to geopolitics, and then I'll take the plunge. Well, again, none of this is financial advice. Not a financial advisor, but I dollar cost average in over time. I just bought some yesterday, and I still have some that I could buy if it continues to go lower. But that's the idea of the long view. It's to put yourself in a position over 10 years. And I think if someone can do that, the goal is 10% of your paycheck for 10 years of your life. If you can steadily invest 10% of your paycheck for 10 years of your life, by the end of that 10 years, you should be good to go and be able to live whatever kind of life you want to live. That's the long view idea. 10 for 10. Not necessarily crypto. My play is infrastructure, but it's whatever you decide you want to do. So let's see what this lady has to say. We'll hop back into this.
Maybe, there are different definitions or, some confusion. But, will this be forever? Again, it's really chairman specific. And so, future administrations, you could see the two agencies pulling apart again. But, my hope is while they're in this posture of working closely together, they can fix some things that need to be fixed.
That's well said. So without putting the cart before the horse, so to speak, if we get genius and clarity both enacted, I guess the question is, what next?
Yeah.
What work will the Blockchain Association be up to in a world where both of those are the law of the land?
I would love to say that I'll go on extended vacation and the work will be done, but that's never the case. I think one of the biggest other, kind of side issues, and it's not even a side issue, this is a core issue, is changing the tax code. Mm-hmm. The tax code clearly wasn't written with crypto in mind. The way they have applied it has been very disadvantaged. It has not been in a way that helps the markets, and so we need some changes to the law, and that is something that they're working on as well in Congress, to update some of the tax codes so it treats digital assets more fairly, rather than kind of penalizing it based on the technology. So that's another issue we're really going to be focused on, is getting the tax code fixed.
What would be some examples? I can think of something. For instance, stablecoin swaps. If you were to, move from dollars to USDC, that's a taxable event under the current code. Probably shouldn't be. What are you looking or advocating to change?
Yeah, absolutely. The taxable events, we're looking to create a de minimis exemption so that not every time you use, your every time you have a transaction, it's taxed. The idea that maybe someday you can go buy coffee with your Bitcoin and that not be a taxable event. That is something we're looking to change. There's some treatments around staking and mining, and the way that's taxed that we need to change. One of my favorite examples, just because it goes to show how absurd this can be, is if you donate crypto right now, they require a full appraisal for the value of the crypto in order to deduct it.
Really?
The market, it's not good enough to look at what the market is. You have to have a professional appraisal. And so they're likening,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's
I'm learning
really,
this for the first time.
It's really interesting. So they're, it's almost like donating crypto would be like me donating my
art or something.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, so that's, one of those where I think, it's absurd, and people recognize that it's absurd, and so it's time to fix it and make it so that it's fair for crypto.
You can probably see the sweat from my brow about thinking about April 15th coming up on the horizon. Summer, thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
Yeah, no,
Hopefully
thank you for having me on. Absolutely.
Take care.
Thank you.
And good luck in DC.
Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us for this session of interviews. Hopefully you're enjoying the conference at home. We'll be back soon. Enjoy the rest of the summit.
Welcome back to Ondo Summit. Let's give a warm welcome to our MC, Brendan Flores.
And
all right, welcome back, everyone.
Stone.
We're at our final 2 sessions of the day. Are we ready?
What do we got?
Let's wrap up strong, starting with our next panel entitled On-Chain Capital Markets, examining various approaches to tokenization and their implications. To discuss this, please welcome our panelists to the stage, along with Ondo's own General Counsel, Mark Janoff.
Who's the panel? Should be good information from the DTCC at least.
Alrighty, well, looks like we saved the best for second to last here.
Almost.
Well, hello everyone, and thanks again for joining us today and hearing from all of our distinguished speakers and panelists. It's really been an honor to have all of you here with us. So our session today is focused on-chain capital markets. So we're going to talk a little bit about the why, the how, the where, and the what of tokenized publicly traded securities. And maybe we'll even get to the when, so you all can place your Kalshi and Poly market bets. But I'm excited to dive in with our panelists today. Nadine Chakar, the Managing Director and Global Head of DTCC Digital Assets, and Yoshi Yokokawa, Co-Founder and CEO of Alpaca. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Maybe you could both start just by briefly introducing yourselves and what you do. Nadine?
So as Mark said, I'm Nadine Chakar. I run digital for DTCC. Been part of the organization for a couple of years now. Came through an acquisition of a fintech firm. So we're marrying fintech and digital market infrastructure at DTCC. And I think everybody knows by now, because I did get asked about this quite a bit today. In December, we got a no action letter from the SEC that allows us now to proceed to start tokenizing our inventory and start really to push forward on digital market infrastructure. So that's what we do at DTCC.
Terrific. Yoshi?
Hi, I'm Yoshi. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Alpaca. Alpaca is a FINRA, SEC, and DTCC member self-clearing broker-dealer in the US and multiple other jurisdictions. And we are also the clearing and custody infrastructure API companies supporting a lot of tokenizations, supporting modern fintech applications in the world.
Excellent. Well, thank you both very much. So I mentioned we'd start with the why here. So at Ondo, we often talk about tokenization as unlocking access. So access to more financial instruments, to more ways to hold them, to more ways to use them. I'm really interested in understanding how this aligns with other market participants' views of kind of the purpose of tokenization. So Yoshi, maybe we'll start with you. Alpaca has a wide range of customers from other broker-dealers, robo-advisors, hedge funds, crypto exchanges, token issuers, retail investors, and beyond. How does the value of tokenization to those customers vary across that customer base?
I think I think about kind of two directions and two time durations when I think about tokenization. One is that where the world actually moving and how the financial system is moving towards. Because everyone wants less risk, less systemic risk, and the better experience with the faster money movement. So in order to achieve that, bringing whole the system on chain, which is tokenization is a part of that, is necessity. So that's the one thing that we always think about, we have to go there. But at the same time, there's immediate steps that we have to take. That's about product market fit, more of immediate short term, what we should be doing. And that's coming from actual people demands. And how I see is definitely accessibility, because there are a lot of countries that have their assets on chain instead of having their money in their local currencies, or because of some of the credibility of the local banks, have their assets on chain. So they have to be able to access those financial assets that's already liquid in the world, which is US stocks, to be able to be accessed by the on-chain system. I think that's the demands that what we are seeing in the tokenized stocks.
Terrific. So in addition to access, kind of the efficiency play as well.
Yeah, I think like when I think about it, like more of the macro lens, like if you step back a little bit, like we have to kind of understand why this is happening anyway. Of course, there's a technology innovation, but like we have to think about why that innovation happens, because this is for the better world and better things for the people. It's like, safer, investments, like, safer system, so that we don't see any more Lehman shock, right? Because it's a lot of capital crunch in the immediate, credit crunch. That's going to be reduced if the settlement happens atomically instead of money sits there because of the funding problem. So I think I think about that lens first as well, in addition to what's happening right now in terms of the product market fit of what the market needs.
Terrific. So yeah, speaking of innovation, Nadine, you mentioned the no action letter that DTC received. Can you talk a little bit more about what you're hoping to learn from that? I don't know if you'd call it a tokenization pilot. It's kind of a little bit time delimited. What you're hoping to learn from that and how that factors into what DTC is trying to achieve globally.
Sure. Just to build on Yoshi's comments, like innovation is also driven not just by client demand, but also the ability of looking at risk management, looking at efficiencies. And you get all that with the digital infrastructure that we're looking forward to working with all our participants and their clients to get us there. The no action letter is only time bound in terms of we did not ask for any exemptions to any securities law. That's really important to note. What we've asked for is a little bit of leeway, because as a highly regulated entity, we have to govern our businesses with rule books and other risk management. So we've asked for a little bit of room to grow into it. So that is what we're starting to, if you will, build the infrastructure to do so. We have about $100 trillion in assets, 1.4 million CUSIPs within our custody, and that is where we're hoping over a period of time to get there. With the no action letter, in order to better risk manage, we've committed to tokenizing the Russell 1000, ETFs that are tied to major indices, treasuries, and other fixed income instruments. And what we're looking to do is, the tokenization process by itself is super easy, right? We can do that all right now. But there's an ecosystem that you build around it that takes a little bit of time and thought. And you also need to add, you need to give these tokens a level of value, right? And what is that for us? We have been working with a lot of people in this room and elsewhere to build an interconnected, eventually interoperable L1, L2 layer, so we can move, and our participants can move these tokens with ease and security. So that is one element of what we're doing. We are also trying to build use cases around collateral. So we're looking to roll out, hopefully by the second half of this year, a collateral infrastructure, which we call our collateral app chain. So an app chain just dedicated to collateral. To be clear, we are not doing collateral management, but we're allowing our participants and their clients to have the ability of leveraging tokenized assets as collateral, and you can move that.
Keep in mind, DTCC is tokenizing on the Canton network, mind you.
Finance security during Japanese trading hours. We're asleep here in the US and you want to use a US security to do so. If it's in your wallet, you can move it, you can use it. And this is just the beginning of what we believe over a period of time, that we will rebuild the infrastructure and the rails of the US capital markets.
Excellent, thank you. Turning a little bit from the why to the what, so I spoke a little bit earlier about various tokenization models that have kind of been in the public debate. You've heard a lot of tokenizers, issuers, market participants discuss the relative merits of those models. The SEC came out with their statement recently, giving their own taxonomy regarding what these models are. Nadine, how would you describe the various models and kind of just in brief the pros and cons of each?
The SEC did a phenomenal job explaining it, and I would urge all of you to read it. It's a couple of pages, so it's not very onerous. And I think about it in three buckets. You have what's called the direct methodology to tokenization. So you're pretty much tokenizing at the issuer level, and you're the direct owner of that security. You've got the indirect method that DTCC uses, where we're tokenizing the entitlement, and you've got a third level that other fintechs are using, which is really a synthetic version of that. And they did a nice job between the pros and the cons But then it's amazing when our letter of no action came out, this debate over what DTCC is doing or not doing has emerged. But the SEC really clarified that, at least from a DTCC perspective, you preserve the same ownerships that you have today to tomorrow. And we're very, very conscious to ensure that everything that we're doing protects, there's a protection of investor rights in that process, right? So both models are just fine. They've always existed. They've coexisted. They will continue to coexist in the future. But sometimes this world of like having an intermediary, some people, it rubs them the wrong way. But the fact of the matter, whether it's direct or indirect, you still need somebody in the chain to be able to process and preserve this investor protection, right? So if I own a share of Apple directly from Apple, who's going to do my corporate actions? Who's going to make sure that the asset is safe? So there's a lot of things. So intermediation in itself is not a bad term, but this new digital technology is collapsing it, and we're very cognizant of that, and we're doing our part, if you will, to ensure that we continue to proceed with a fair amount of efficiency and protection in the marketplace.
Absolutely. And I'm sure I could nerd out for a long time about sort of the legal aspects of these models.
I'm not getting with you in the legal debate, so no.
I was going to ask Yoshi to talk about that. No. Yoshi, could you just describe a little bit about what characteristics of tokenized securities are important for you and your customers from a business perspective?
Yeah, so I think the how we are playing in the tokenization world right now is more of the the kind of synthetic version, right? We have we are the custodian of the underlying assets, and then tokenization players use that to tokenize assets. And then I think there's, of course, pros and cons in every different methodologies. And I know there's an ideal how it should be. At the same time, I think about what is accepted by the users in the market, and that's what I also focus very much on. Of course, Ondo has been getting amazing traction in terms of the amount and trading volume, and that really proves it's adapted to the market. And I think that's something that we should be focusing a lot, in addition to logical what is pros and cons as well. So I think I'm neutral of I think every single methodology of the tokenization should be happening, because it's a huge market that we have to do every single thing to push.
To me, reset mode, if you're asking are we at the bottom, essentially, would be probably around 55,000 to 40,000 for Bitcoin. So I don't think we're at that point yet. I think we still got more pain if we're going to get there.
Types of blockchains, these assets might be made available on, or some of the use cases might be available on. So Nadine, you mentioned NapChain for collateral. Obviously, there's a variety of different kinds of chains: private permission, public permissionless, hybrid chains, things in between. Nadine, can you talk a little bit about how you view the trade-offs between private permission chains and public permissionless chains?
I mean, it's really going to be a trade-off between transparency and scalability versus privacy and privacy and compliance. That's at its fundamental core. But the reality is we're going to need a mix of all of it to make it work. So at DTCC, a lot of our infrastructure is built on Hyperledger Besu today. But we also support other L1s that are out there. We have been very public with our relationship with Canton, for example, and we're also working with other L1s and L2 providers out there. The idea for DTCC is to have a curated network of L1s, L2s, where we will overlay an orchestration layer on top. And when I say, which is really driven by client demand. What took us to Canton was our clients told us, we want to work on Canton, and we will select layer the next one and next one, again, based on liquidity and where our clients want to go. But what we're trying to do, we're trying really hard, and we will not pick winners or losers, right? It's going to be really
I was calling the 55K, and then I was going to gauge from there. I do think we're going to see 55K for Bitcoin, and then I was kind of gauge from that point once we see what the fallout is of that. That's kind of my theory on it.
And as an industry, we do need to work into ease our way into interoperability, which is more than technology. It's around standards. It's around data. There's a lot of other non-technical requirements that need to go in to get us in a true world of interoperability. But we leverage private, we leverage public, we will continue to do so. I don't personally believe there'll be a one chain that will win it all. It'll be an amalgamation of chains. And the way we manage all this is ensuring that at the core we can track movement on a real-time basis, ensuring the scalability and the security.
They don't think there's going to be one chain to rule them all. This isn't Lord of the Rings. There's going to be several.
Will help expedite adoption and fluidity in the marketplace.
Understood. And Yoshi, some critics of private chains talk about how maybe they're just kind of centralized databases with a little bit of extra marketing pop. Do you think private chains can fulfill the promises or the goals of your customers, or are public permission chains really needed for to achieve those purposes?
I think I'm very much same opinion about Nadine about what's good, or who's going to be winner, or what is best. But I think about is that this is actually connected to a lot of even nations' interests of what chains or what layers that countries want the people to use as well, right? Because we're talking about U.S. stock tokenization, but it's going to be all global stock tokenization, and there's going to be global assets tokenization. But the reality is that all of them are in different countries, but we're only talking about this Clarity Act and how it's going to be used, and the SEC letter how it's going to be recognized. But the reality is that each of the countries, each of the region has a different understanding, but the assets from each of the countries will be on the same same network. Mm-hmm. And I think eventually I feel it's going to be different national interests will probably pick or push certain network regardless of private or public, and then it's going to have certain type of the conflicts between those, just each of the country has certain conflicts China, Russia, United States. So that's how I think about it. And so that's the reason why I feel I see it, this is no winner or loser, and it's going to be multiple that's going to continue to exist. And I feel it's going to be connected more to the government's national interest level, what's going to be adopted.
Very interesting. And Nadine, you talked a bit about this app chain for collateral. Do you view that as being kind of a hub that other chains are plugging into, some of them public permissionless, some of them private chains, or do I have that paradigm kind of all wrong?
No, you sort of got it.
Okay.
Right. The idea is for us to, now why is it an app chain? It's a private app chain just because of the immense computing power that you would need. There's also a lot of private data in there that investors wouldn't want exposed to the world, right? If you and I are exchanging collateral, I'm not sure we'd want the whole world to know. So the app chain provides that level of privacy, flexibility, and speed that one requires. But the idea is definitely to have other, whether it's other L1s to connect in there, there's also other platforms, collateral platforms that are out there, other ICSDs, CSDs, CCPs. I can pretty much take any 3 letters of the alphabet and come up with a good combination. But eventually, at least our vision is.
I'm gonna stop you right there, Tolik. Everyone can be liquidated. If we learn nothing about the Lehman Brothers crash in 2008, everyone can be liquidated.
Open. We've got requirements when it comes to security and scalability. Beyond that, we have been very careful not to, even when it comes to a collateral, to a token standard, while we're EVM compatible and pretty much ERC20 driven, we tend to use different, and will support different levels of tokens, versions of tokens, to ensure that we can be more compatible and open. Now, what's the main difference, if you will, what we've done with our app chain and our tokenization engines is we've encapsulated.
No need to say sorry. I'm like, it's just a reality check. I mean, Bitcoin, if their average is 76 and they have leverage on top of leverage, and a lot of their buying has been pumped full of debt. So if it goes below their average and those shares start losing money and people start bleeding strategy, he's going to have to sell something at some point. It's not impunitive. That's why I said everyone can be liquidated. If we look at the housing crisis in 2008 and how much was liquidated, when whole banks go solvent, bad things tend to happen. Just my opinion. Now, there is a lot of money behind Bitcoin. I don't think they're going to let it go to zero. But I'm just saying I don't think Michael Saylor's safe.
To move collateral from point A to point B at the speed of the network, we would welcome them to join us.
Very interesting. Thank you. Maybe we should talk a bit about liquidity, kind of versus fragmentation, and some of the time we have left. So there's multiple schools of thought out there. There are concerns from certain folks that tokenization can really fragment liquidity. Others feel like, well, it's going to lead to more liquidity because you're going to bring more people on chain. There's going to be faster settlement, 24/7 trading, reduce counterparty risk. Yoshi, how can a player in Alpaca's shoes help promote more liquidity in on-chain capital markets?
I think for us, because we play primarily on the synthetic field, at least as of today, and of course you're in discussion with the DTCs as well. Our job is to make sure that underlying collaterals are very much secured, and then making sure that it's very credible, so that it creates more trust that it's going to be there, right? It's not algo tokens or algo something that's going to just have nothing. So I think making sure that that really exists and it's actually redeemable. And the fiat TradFi stuff can come back if it's tokens gone. So I think the making sure that the showing the trust is one very key important component. And I think about liquidity. We definitely see extremely big growth of the liquidity of the stock tokens right now, right? Because a lot of the DMMs, market makers coming into the market, because now there's a lot of arbitrage opportunity with the TradFi stocks and then tokenized stocks, and I think that's just going to continue to increase, and then that's going to even increase more users to be able to buy the stock tokens on chain too. So I think, in my opinion, it's a good thing. Of course, NYSE and Nasdaq should have fear, because the liquidity of the fiat stocks may be moved to the on-chain side, and that's the reason why they're very proactive, pushing the new initiatives to be happening, right? So I think this is inevitable, and then we have to accept the fact, and then we have to understand why those players continue to be very proactively involved, and I think that's a good thing for all investors and all ecosystem that we're in right now.
Absolutely. And Nadine, is this fragmentation problem, is it a genuine problem?
Yes, I hold Chainlink, Ondo, HBAR, Canton Network, XRP, and then I also hold gold, silver, copper, and real estate. And my goal is to invest 10% every month for 10 years and build out over the future.
Competing with anybody. If anything, we're enabling all of you in this room and in your firms to advance your digital aspirations. So with DTCC moving in and starting to, if you will, establish roots in building more financial infrastructure for digital assets, we are urging everybody to stop competing on infrastructure and really work with us to build an infrastructure that's scalable across the marketplace and compete on the strength of your ideas and products versus infrastructure. As we start to do that, and we think our message is getting a little bit of traction, and obviously as we start to hopefully move in the second part of this year and offer more tokenization services and release the app chain, the tokenization methodology that we're pursuing is purposely designed to ensure that there's no fragmentation of liquidity. So we do tokenize the entitlement, we do use digital twins. That's been poo-pooed a little bit left, right, and center, but if you really think of its value, the ability of having a digital twin and being able to convert it back and forth into digital or back.
You're very welcome, guys. I'm here every single day, Monday through Friday at noon. I stream and we cover XRP, Ondo, CC, Chainlink, HBAR, as well as gold, silver, copper. The entire idea is, for me, what I do, my concept is investing for the long view, right? What's going to fix problems in the future? And I invest 10% of my paycheck, every single paycheck, over in dollar cost average in. And the thing is that's going to beat traditional investors trying to time tops and bottoms every single day of the week. It just is. It's fact. It's proven. It works. And it's worked for several of my subscribers and members in the long view. What's long term? Over the next 5 to 10 years. I invest I will say this confidently. If you invest 10% of your paycheck over 10 years into assets that you have researched and studied and feel confident in, you consistently invest over 10 years, you will be better off financially than 90% of people out there. It's just fact, because no one has that discipline. They just don't. Not financial advice, but that's what the long view is about. It's not about making people rich quick, because that doesn't work. More people get wrecked quick than get rich quick. Let's get back to the stream, though. Let's get back to Ondo Summit, though.
I think any layers of the responsibilities in the TradFi world, I think is continue to exist. As being the broker dealer, investor protection or the clearing, custody with the investor protection, 15c33, all those things have to happen in the crypto world as well. So I think each player has to play their own accountability in this transition as well. So definitely understanding the second QSIP model and all those things, it makes sense. And I think there are a bunch of different methodologies that we want to be a part of alongside with what you do.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much, Yoshi and Nadine, and
thank you,
thanks
Mark.
y'all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the live desk. I'm Frank Chaparro of GSR. What an interesting juxtaposition of the old and new financial services world with DTCC and Alpaca. Clearly, the drumbeat of tokenized equities continues at Ondo Summit, and we'll probably hear more about that in the next. Well, we'll definitely hear more about that in the last and final session of the day, the future of stocks where trading is headed, with Howard Lidzen and Eleanor Terrett. Really appreciate you being a part of the experience. Hope you enjoy the final
What
session.
the heck? They said Ripple was here, yo. They were saying XRPL and Ripple all freaking week. Lame.
All right, we are here, the last session of the day. Let's end by looking forward with our session, The Future of Stocks, Where Trading is Headed Next. To help bring us home, please welcome to the stage Howard Lidzen, CEO of StockTwits, and our special guest moderator and host of Crypto in America, Eleanor Terrett.
We're back again.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good.
Good. Let's say happy Friday. Gosh,
Happy Friday.
it's only Tuesday.
It feels like it's 2030.
Yeah. Well, it's only 2026, and I'm excited to get your projections for 2026. But first of all, I heard you say recently that there's never been a better time to be 60. Tell me why that is.
Because I have money? No.
I don't.
Everybody's so mad, so I figure if they're going to blow each other up, at least I had 60 years.
Yeah.
And but I own and operate 2 millennials, so I'm worried about them.
I'm a millennial.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I just turned 33 yesterday, so
Oh.
what does that mean for
birthday.
me?
I mean, you pray.
All right, well, let's get into the degenerate economy, because this is the phenomenon that you have been talking about for many years now. And for those not familiar, do you mind just giving a little bit of an overview of the degenerate economy? You have a it's so hard to say 3 times fast, degenerate economy index. Let's talk a little bit about actually what it is before we get into some outlooks for 2026.
Yeah, so when I grew up investing, they had sin economy. So it's not anything, it's just a word. Sin back then was how nice America was. It was booze and cigarettes. And here we are in 2026, and we've got sport. Casinos have turned into sports betting, which have turned into prediction markets. 5 years ago, they wanted to put Vlad and Baiju in jail for confetti, and now you can, trade single stock futures and parlay it with a basketball game. So I think the degenerate economy is just humans will go to the lowest common denominator pretty fast if you let them. And not judgmental. Degenerate economy, I think, is just a funny term. My 2 millennials are degenerates. One vapes. I'm not happy about it. One invests in Robinhood and doesn't bet. And they got the cell phone, they've got the cloud, they have the App Store, they have DoorDash, Uber. What are you going to do? Like, that's their Elvis Presley. They live on this machine, and we're all gonna eventually deal with it, right? But right now, it's you can get what you want. You're like a Roman emperor, and so that's where I talk about the degenerate economy. And like any economy, there's the good, the bad, the ugly, and we're seeing it all. But you're not going to unwind it. The New York Stock Exchange, CBOE, CME, NASDAQ, Robinhood, great companies.
Would you say it's the modern day version of investing for millennials and Gen Zs? Talking about some really interesting stocks there. Right?
Yeah, the
Coinbase,
Degenerate Economy
Robinhood.
Index is not like GME and AMC.
Right.
That
Your
was true
grandfather's
degen. That was just people, the world had been designed for, unfortunately, that moment of COVID. And everybody happened to be staring at the same two buttons at the same time, buy or sell GME. Robinhood, checks in the mail, people at home, people just optically designed to push buy or sell. And now we're in a lean back moment of the markets. Like that was the top, let's say, of the mobile, let's click buy or sell. Now we're in this market, unfortunately, with deglobalization, trends have changed, but also with the globalization comes the fact that you can't just stare at 4 stocks or FANG. That was a moment, that was an incredible run, and those companies are incredible, but the world's now looking at Bitcoin, gold, silver, graphite, like nuclear energy. AI tools are being built on Claudebot, running on Alpaca. I'm an investor in Alpaca, so, I see what's going on. And because of StockTwits, we have 1 million people, daily talking about the markets. They move from NVIDIA and Tesla to silver. Right. They're not stupid. They on StockTwits, they fast follow each other into these trends.
You talked about the gamification of stocks. I think you mentioned the confetti on Robinhood back in 2021, right?
Yeah,
We saw the rise of GME.
the quaint days of 2020.
Yeah, but now we're seeing the rise of prediction markets. What are you expecting to see as we go into 2026? I know Kalshi and Polymarket, they're inking deals with major companies left and right.
Yeah, like us, StockTwits. We super bullish on prediction markets. And I didn't see it coming. When I saw Robinhood the first time and Vlad and Baiju showed me the product, I was like, it was so obvious to me as an E-Trade investor and Yahoo Finance person that came into the markets on the retail side. It just seemed crazy that it hadn't existed as soon as the App Store came out. So I was all in on Robinhood, and before that eToro. And because I had started StockTwits and we had an open API, I didn't have the nerve or the skills to go or to go build a broker dealer in 2009, 2010, 11. And by the way, the venture capitalists didn't either. The venture capitalists were all about let's build the next Vanguard, like Wealthfront, Betterment. Not horrible ideas, but took tons of capital. And the idea was, well, we'll just whoever can get to $1 trillion under assets under management first wins. And that turned out to be the wrong bet. The right bet was let's get 10 million people trading, and that's how you make money, right? You get right at the right time when everybody's moving one way and you move one way. With prediction markets, there's no way I would have, if Shane or if they had walked into my office and pitched me the ideas like, Howard, you're the founder of StockTwits, an early investor in Robinhood eToro. Look at this, and I would have not got it because I don't bet, right? And so. You can't get it right. But then, I was with my son at Wimbledon, and he's picking up a girl on Hinge, and I wasn't, and I probably couldn't, and I'm betting on the app. I'm betting on Wimbledon on Robinhood, and I'm like, wow.
Right.
So it wasn't like I'm a gambler, but it was like, he's going on a date, and I'm alone at Wimbledon, and I'm like betting on Wimbledon. And it was the first time I'd done it, and I was like, wow. And, kudos to Robinhood for doing that. At StockTwits, I see.
Real quickly, for those of you who didn't see this morning, they did make a major announcement that they filed with the SEC to essentially have their own tokenized exchange. They're partnering with a prime brokerage service. They didn't say which one. That's why we were hoping it was going to be something to do with Ripple, because there's rumors of a Ripple and Ondo partnership. But there was announcements. They're basically creating their own version of the tokenized stock market. They announced that this morning, and they already filed the paperwork with the SEC. That was also all announced this morning.
I don't know if they're related, but so who are you going to trust? Forgetting about what everybody says about media, they were our prediction market. So no different than Satoshi out of 2008 crisis. Prediction markets are born out of the 2016 distrust of media because we all were looking at the same stupid bet. And it wasn't even a bet. So it was opinion. It was New York Times wrapped around the meter. And so who am I to argue? I think kids should be at the front page of Kalshi and StockTwits and Polymarket, looking at what's trending and looking what people are betting on, not the opinion of Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, TikTok, Larry Ellison, like the people putting their fingers on the weight and getting you aggravated and giving you opinion. People need to realize they've been screwed.
You're seeing a lot of these big companies copying the model now. You're seeing Coinbase getting into prediction markets, Robinhood, Gemini, a lot of these legacy companies saying, oh, that's actually a great idea, a great business model.
Yeah, I don't know that yet. StockTwits looks at it very differently. We're exclusive partners with Polymarket. I'll give you my example of how I see it. It was, as I wrote about on my newsletter for years, it's much easier for Robinhood to be, because I understood alpaca, it's much easier for Robinhood to become Coinbase and Coinbase to become Robinhood. And now we're seeing it. And now everybody's...
Why do you say that?
Well, because in the United States, stocks is a thing, right? And in the United States, Coinbase was much smaller. And Coinbase could have integrated alpaca 4 years ago and offered U.S. listed stocks.
Everything app now, right?
I think Robinhood and DoorDash are the closest to being everything apps. I think America, Fred Wilson says that he's a mentor of mine. Tencent, WeChat, those are...
Either way, it's still good for XRP because Ondo has their stablecoin on the XRPL. Again, XRP and XRPL is going to be about liquidity. So if they have interoperability with the chain, it's still good for XRP.
He's whoever pleases him at the moment, the Roman emperor. And so I don't think it's because they don't trust anything. They're just so used to this magic wand and power. So it's a cultural thing. And now Americans are trying to stuff everything back into an app. I don't think that'll work. Okay. But everybody tries. It's the unbundling, bundling. As for prediction markets, they're media. Quick example. I could care less who's going to win the SpaceX IPO. What does it matter to me? But then I look at a prediction market one day, and it says Morgan Stanley has a 91% chance of winning the IPO. I don't know why I saw it. But that struck me as like, holy shit. I don't know if that's real or not, but it's a Polymarket bet you can make. So think about the media implications and the unintended consequences or how it changes behavior. So Morgan Stanley CEO probably walks down to the trading room and says, congrats guys, I don't know who did this, but like we've got a 91% chance of winning the IPO. Do not say anything bad about Elon Musk or I will kill you. On the other side of the coin is Goldman Sachs, and their CEO walks into the team and goes, how the fuck did you lose the SpaceX IPO? You better get Elon hooked up. And so...
I met him the other day.
Did you?
It's pretty cool, yeah.
And are you having his baby? Just kidding. Isn't that the only reason he meets you?
No,
I'm
not
sorry.
Elon.
I didn't mean that.
I met the Goldman Sachs
He can
CEO.
do it without intercourse. So,
what the hell was that?
XAI and space. Sorry. So that was more a knock on him. So it changes behavior.
Right.
And we don't even know if that number that I saw was real. But so imagine on StockTwits, we're partners with Polymarket. Imagine on StockTwits, we have all these people arguing about things that maybe aren't related to anybody else. So on StockTwits right now, the most two hated stocks are CoreWeave and Palantir. You can argue if that matters or not. In a year, we'll be able to let our audience argue and make their own bet and say, in the next 30 days, will CoreWeave or Palantir be down more? No one else can make that bet except a couple 100,000 people on StockTwits. Who does that help? New York Stock Exchange, Polymarket, our audience gets to do bragging right bets. You know, they're killing time. We call it speculation has become entertainment. We can judge it, we
If you're right, then I win. Again, my 5 core infrastructure pillars that I invest in consistently are XRP, Canton Network, Chainlink, Ondo, and HBAR. It's about building the future infrastructure over the next 10 years with all of our crypto assets. Not financial advice.
So I think it makes sense for them to be doing what they do to preserve their valuation, which is we're a financial business. No one wants to be a media company. I think it's never been a better time to be a media company. Only, depending on your valuation and how you do it. Look at Barry Weiss just sold for $200 million building a business on Substack. And we distrust media. And along comes Polymark and Kalshi. No one wants to admit that that's what it's like, but that's new media.
Got to get your take on Bitcoin because we are at a crypto conference and it's tanking today. I think it's pretty fair to say it's down at 75,000. What do you chalk up the, I guess, lackluster price action and also maybe investors moving out of cryptocurrency into other areas of investment? Do you see any correlation, any pattern behind that? Any continuation as we go into 2026? Is Bitcoin going to be super volatile this year? What's your sort of outlook? It's still in your DGen index. Bitcoin remains
it's
there.
It's still, and it will always remain there because it's the thing.
Okay.
The thing.
Right?
Too much money.
The thing. What's the thing?
I don't know. It's the thing that seems to survive. It's the scarcity of it, and I think Bitcoin just proves that the macro people are the people that believed in debasement and still do believe in debasement. That was their vehicle to express debasement and dissatisfaction. And as Wall Street does, if you like something, they will give you a lot of it. Mm-hmm. And so what they built was thousands of on-ramps for you to make a bet on debasement. So the supply of access dwarfs right now the demand. And it's always supply demand. And if it's fundamental, you got to be. That's money management. I don't have any true fundamental understanding of where Bitcoin will be priced, but debasement continues to be a thing. In fact, it's accelerating, right, with deglobalization. So you have degeneracy at the same time as you have deglobalization. The deglobalization bet is much bigger bet. Like, it's over my pay grade. We're talking about border fighting. We're talking about Canada's our enemy.
Debasement trade, we talk about it at length here.
Greenland. Do I have to worry that my kids are going to be welcome in Europe or certain places? These are new concerns, and there's hoarding going on. So if you're hoarding and you need metals and you're worried about raw materials, Bitcoin doesn't really do you any good as a country. So what do? And so they're hoarding their steel, gas, oil. So this is just a trade that's gone on cyclically for a long time, for centuries. And people are taking their money out of Bitcoin too and buying gold, silver. And the problem, like the thing with gold and silver, and I see it on StockTwits, is there's not 1,000 tickers, right? You can't go buy 10,000 different ETFs to get access like you could for Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. You got to go SLV or SIL. So like all that money just shot into precious metals because young investors are just learning that, there's other ideas besides just Bitcoin. So I think it's just this continued trade going on that Bitcoin led the way and gold and silver and other things are catching up. And, I think over 10 years, Bitcoin's done much better than gold. So it just depends on what the time frame.
Yeah, with Bitcoin, everyone always says you got to zoom out.
Yeah, I think you have to zoom out because you do that with gold. People do that with gold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Regulation. So we've gone from a very strict SEC head in Gary Gensler to a much more relaxed head in Paul Atkins, just in terms of red tape and letting the markets kind of do what they do.
Yeah.
What's your take on how that's going to be for the markets going forward? I know you've had some thoughts on that. I've listened to your podcast. Is it good for the markets and the economy to have this sort of just, I don't think you used the word free-for-all, but it's kind of sort of what you implied. You said, no rules equals chaos. I don't think that there's no rules, but I did interview the head of the SEC and the head of the CFTC last week, and their whole shtick basically is, the least amount of regulation, the most light touch as possible, but still effective regulation, but not over-regulate. Is that something you think will be effective as we continue with this administration?
I mean, listen, I'm very biased here. Kramer on Seinfeld was like, yeah, no rules is chaos. He storms into the room, no rules, chaos. Funny, but it's true. I don't think Gensler was for, I don't know what the hell the guy stood for. And I'd say that as like, I'm pretty right-wing myself, but not just, I don't recognize either party, but I'm pretty right-wing. The eye for an eye type thing and rule of law. Rule of law number one. Like without rule of law, these people will be crazy. So you went from Gensler was like so arbitrary, right? And like you couldn't communicate to an over-communicative free-for-all. And I think if you have a free-for-all, people get pissed. Like in crypto, like you need some sort of like rules and behavior. And if people aren't going to behave, like with silver and gold, even though the SEC's not about, the CME curbed your ability to leverage. They acted as some, whether you like it or not, there's some rules, and they acted as to protect people and themselves. And I kind of like that. Mm-hmm. I can trade against anybody. Like I'm not scared of that. But I think at a time when we've onboarded hundreds of millions of people through Robinhood, Alpaca, tons of companies, Coinbase, Kraken, StockTwits, they deserve a fair shot, mm-hmm. right? The Wild West, they're really great things to watch. I love Westerns. Settling of the West is an incredible, not recent history. And so crypto and all these things are the digital frontier. What made the West great was I wouldn't have been that first guy over. I said, listen, 10 you people go first. I don't need to be so rich. Let you guys go carve the path. So, the people that are dealing with crypto on the front side, they got the arrows in their back. I think at some point, we need a clear path so we can go settle that digital frontier. Right. And I think in the physical world, same thing. And we have an administration that doesn't seem to be playing by any rules with their own money and with their own circle of friends. And I don't know, I don't like that. I can survive in that world, which is why I say it's a good time to be 60. But the fallout from this is not going to be pleasant. And if we ping pong left and right, I mean, that's not good for any young person.
We'll bring it full circle. It's a good time to be 60. It's a good time to be 33, hopefully.
Peptides. I don't even know what's there.
Howard Lindzen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for listening.
He's a good interview. That was a good interview. I like that guy. See if they got anything else. I think that was the last block, and then we'll do a recap here. Yeah, that's the last block. All right. I'll leave it playing in the background here while we talk a little bit, make sure I don't miss anything. Oh, here it is, see?
Made it this far. Thank you so much for staying here. I see some people cheering in the crowd. We've heard all about what people have in store for 2026. It has been our privilege as well to share what we have in store for 2026. We've heard from asset managers what to expect for the future of tokenization. We've heard from banking executives. We've heard from senior policymakers. We've heard from crypto exchanges. Quite frankly, it's been an incredible day, not only to share what we have in store for 2026, but also what to expect for the tokenization space as a whole. So I have one final announcement for those of you in the room, and that is that the bar is now open. So thank you very much. Maybe the most important announcement of the day. For those of you who are still watching the live stream, thank you very much. It's been our pleasure to host you virtually as well. We really appreciate you tuning in, and I will see those of you here in the room very soon at the bar.
All right. I wish I could go to the bar. That'd be nice. But yeah, that's woo, that was a stream, baby. Woo, we had 2 of those today. 2 3-hour streams today covering the Ondo Summit. But I ain't mad at it. There was some decent information in there. The first half was way better. Honestly, if you guys get an opportunity and you didn't catch any of it, I strongly suggest excuse me. I strongly suggest watch part 1, just even at least the first 10 minutes of the actual Ondo Summit part of it, because there was some juicy information in there. There are a lot of new people who have found the stream, so take this opportunity to talk to you guys a little bit. My name is Scott. I've been streaming now for about 6 months or so, roughly 5 or 6 months or so. But I stream every single day, Monday through Saturday. It's about my 5 core pillars, and that is XRP, Canton Network, HBAR, Chainlink, and of course, Ondo. I talk about them every single day, and my goal is to dollar cost average over the next 10 years, right? 10% for the next 10 years, starting back in 2019, and then again, restarting in 2023. But we're not going to get into all that. A lot of you want a recap. Honestly, the big parts of it were they announced their Wall Street 2.0. They announced that they filed with the SEC to basically continue pushing their Wall Street 2.0. What else? There was another thing. I'm losing my brain right now. Patrick Witt said that he expected the Clarity Act to be done by April 3rd. Now, he said that in jest, but you're going to see a bunch of headlines about that. Guaranteed it's going to be blown out of proportion, and he said it as a joke. But the soundbite is there, and the quote was said. So Patrick Witt from the White House, they really had a boring conversation about everything they do at the White House to try and get this pushed across the finish line. So we did get some information about the White House and how involved they are in getting market structure pushed across the finish line. We had BlackRock there, not Larry Fink, Samara, I think her name was, from BlackRock, again, just praising and praising and praising Ondo tokenization. There's a lot of confusion. Probably the number one thing I saw was that Ondo token has absolute no utility. That's not entirely true. It is the native token to the network, okay? So the more the network is used, the more Ondo will be used, and the more it will appreciate in price. And again, we are here for price appreciation, and that's why we have multiple pieces of infrastructure that we invest in. At least I do, right? It's about 5 core pillars. Those are my crypto pillars, but I also have copper, silver, gold, and real estate, right? It's more about the mindset. I say all the time that wealth is a mindset. Wealth is not a number. Wealth is a mindset. Because broke people make broke people decisions, and rich people will make rich people decisions. If you give someone who doesn't know what to do with it a large amount of money, they will be broke again in no time, right? So first, it's about changing the mindset, having the discipline, having the discipline to actually research something fully and invest in it consistently and have the dedication to it for a long period of time. That is something not many people can do. And if you're able to do those things, then you'll beat people. I'm sorry, you're gonna outperform the vast majority of others. I couldn't find the words I wanted to use. So I'm gonna call it. That's a lot of streaming for me today, but I appreciate every single one of you for spending your time with me here today. And again, I'll be back tomorrow at noon. As always, we'll cover all the news. I appreciate everyone for being